Hey everyone, welcome to day one of the Builders Playbook for the Future of Localization. Today we'll be laying the foundations for the conversations, ideas and innovations that will shape the rest of the conference. We will be getting started in approximately 9 minutes. This is a live interactive event and we'd love for you to be part of the conversation. You can submit questions here in Zoom or join us in the GenAI and Localization Slack workspace throughout the coming 3 days. The Slack community is the place to ask questions during the sessions, continue conversations with speakers, follow the hackathon as teams build throughout the conference, discuss ideas emerging from the Innovation Challenge, and connect with localization professionals and colleagues from around the world. We have a packed program for you today featuring presentations from Adobe, GitLab, and Allegro, as well as a keynote session from Phrase.
People take so many things too seriously, honestly. Hi, I'm Amy Grace O'Brien. I work at Adobe as a Senior Linguistic Quality Manager. I'll be talking about how we're using AI at Adobe to extract terminology in a way that's way more efficient and way more scalable. It's a bit racy, but
I've brought the entire translation lifecycle into GitLab with 0 vendor dependencies. My name is Lauren Barker, and I work for GitLab as a full stack engineer in the globalization and localization team. You shouldn't miss my session because I've brought the entire translation lifecycle into GitLab with 0 vendor dependencies. Source change happens, translation happens through CI/CD. And you get a translation MR automatically delivered back to you. Yeah, Yoda, be like Yoda.
We'll also have a short coffee break at approximately 5:30 CET, giving everyone a chance to stretch their legs, pay a visit, get some water, recharge before we continue with the first of our daily workshops. This afternoon's workshop is presented by Allegro's localization and data team.
Hi, I'm Maria Dębska-Czerniawska from Data Annotation and QA Services team at Allegro. If you want to learn a practical way to make AI-assisted quality evaluation more reliable, join our workshop on Wednesday. You'll learn how expert reviews become gold data, how that data tests an LLM judge, and how using multiple metrics will help you verify if your AI output is trustworthy.
If you haven't yet registered for the workshops, there's still time to do so. Simply scan the QR code on the screen to secure your place. Your workshop pass gives you access to 3 practical hands-on sessions led by people who are actively building the future of localization. You'll leave with real-world insights, practical skills, and resource materials to help you apply these tools immediately in your own organization. Hey everyone, welcome to day one of the Builders Playbook for the Future of Localization. Today we'll be laying the foundations for the conversations, ideas and innovations that will shape the rest of the conference. We will be getting started in approximately 4 minutes. This is a live interactive event and we'd love for you to be part of the conversation. You can submit questions here in Zoom or join us in the GenAI and Localization Slack workspace throughout the coming 3 days. The Slack community is the place to ask questions during the sessions, continue conversations with speakers, follow the hackathon as teams build throughout the conference, discuss ideas emerging from the Innovation Challenge, and connect with localization professionals and colleagues from around the world. We have a packed program for you today featuring presentations from Adobe, GitLab, and Allegro, as well as a keynote session from Phrase.
I'll take so many things super seriously, honestly. Hi, I'm Amy Grace O'Brien. I work at Adobe as a Senior Linguistic Quality Manager. I'll be talking about how we're using AI at Adobe to extract terminology in a way that's way more efficient and way more scalable. It's a bit racy, but
I've brought the entire translation lifecycle into GitLab with 0 vendor dependencies. My name is Lauren Barker, and I work for GitLab as a full stack engineer in the globalization and localization team. You shouldn't miss my session because I've brought the entire translation lifecycle into GitLab with 0 vendor dependencies. Source change happens, translation happens through CI/CD, and you get a translation MR automatically delivered back to you. Yeah, Yoda, be like Yoda.
We'll also have a short coffee break at approximately 5:30 CET, giving everyone a chance to stretch their legs, pay a visit, get some water, recharge before we continue with the first of our daily workshops. This afternoon's workshop is presented by Allegro's localization and data team.
Hi, I'm Maria Dębska-Czerniawska from Data Annotation and QA Services team at Allegro. If you want to learn a practical way to make AI-assisted quality evaluation more reliable, join our workshop on Wednesday. You'll learn how expert reviews become gold data, how that data tests an LLM judge, and how using multiple metrics will help you verify if your AI output is trustworthy.
If you haven't yet registered for the workshops, there's still time to do so. Simply scan the QR code on the screen to secure your place. Your workshop pass gives you access to 3 practical hands-on sessions led by people who are actively building the future of localization. You'll leave with real-world insights, practical skills, and resource materials to help you apply these tools immediately in your own organization. Thanks again for joining us today. Over the next 3 days, you'll meet the builders, experimenters, and innovators who are redefining what's possible in localization. We're delighted to have you with us. We will be getting started shortly.
Hi, I'm Georg. I'm the CEO at Phrase. Phrase is the leading language intelligence platform. We have started to use that language very specifically. And in my talk today, I'm going to try and explain why. I'm going to talk today about 3 things: the commodity trap of translation and how an obsession with quality could be the death of localization, why the model isn't where the value really resides, and how we can survive and thrive as an industry, and how localization teams can upgrade themselves to provide more and critical value right across an organization. I'm excited to join the conference today because I think it's going to be about practical tips. It's going to be the theory, the excitement, and the experience that all of the speakers have had in bringing AI into the world of language and content transformation, as we are all doing. But I think you're also going to hear ideas that you can put into practice, take away, and apply in your own roles. So I hope it's exciting and interesting, thought-provoking, and look forward to maybe a few spicy takes.
All right, I think we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're at in the world. I'm in Dallas, Texas, so it's early in the morning here, and I'm not waiting for the coffee break. I've already busted out a wonderful cappuccino to kick off the day here. Welcome to the GenAI and Localization Spring Conference. where the Builders Playbook for the Future of Localization is taking place. It's great to see so many familiar names joining us again, along with many, many faces. Over the next 3 days, we're going to spend time with people who are actively building the future of localization. This conference was created for professionals who are trying to make sense of one of the biggest technology revolutions our industry has ever experienced. AI is changing how multilingual content is created, managed, delivered, and measured, and every organization is trying to figure out what that means in practice. That's why our focus today is no longer on the theoretical, it's on the practical and on builders. And over the next 3 days, you're going to hear from practitioners, innovators, and technology leaders who are experimenting, implementing, and succeeding, failing, and learning and discovering along the way. We're going to be sharing real-world stories and real-world workflows from people who are actually doing the work. Thank you so very much for investing your time with us. We know there are many places you could be, and we're excited to have you here to help us kick things off. I'd like to introduce two familiar faces who are going to be joining us to moderate the conference. And the first one is somebody you already know. He hardly needs an introduction, but welcome, OB Jan. Jan Hendricks from the OB Jan Network. He's also the founder and the CEO of Beluga Linguistics and the creator of Localunch, and one of the most active voices on social media, helping localization professionals stay informed about what's happening across the language technology landscape. He joined us in December, and we're delighted to have him back again today. Please join me in welcoming Jan Hendricks to the stage. Oh, your sound is off, I think. Hey, Jan, I think your sound is off.
Okay, so sorry. Next one. Nobody hears me. Now you hear me. I'm playing around with a small
So-
mic.
You're
Good.
giving everybody a heart attack right from the get-go, Jan. Go ahead and fill us in on what you were saying.
We're trying it again. My goodness, we are starting good off. So again, thanks a lot for having me here. It's a huge pleasure to do the live streaming of the third GenAI and Localization conference, again to the OBN channel, to the global audience we have. And I can only say, you're on the right place, because today and the next 2 days till Friday, we will have amazing speakers. We will have amazing things to do. We have hackathons. We have the Slack channel where all the interaction will happen, apart from the comment field here on YouTube. Again, you have seen it before. There's a QR code available. I think we will show it now on screen. Exactly. Scan this QR code, please, and head over to our Slack community, where you can network, where you can speak with the others, where the hackathon will take place, and where I will take a look on what's happening there. So that's mainly from my part. I'm super excited to be here. Stefan, thanks for having me as a co-moderator here, and I wish everybody a very cool third conference, GenAI and Localization.
You started a new trend already, Jan, with your wonderful hat. You'll have to tell us how you got that Obian hat in the next sequence you're talking. Let me quickly introduce our second moderator. It's someone whose career sits right at the crossroads of language technology and global collaboration. And many of you know her as the host of Café con Mache. That sounds wonderfully South American, actually, but I don't think she's actually joining us from South America this morning. She'll have to tell us. In any case, she's become one of the industry's most recognizable voices, helping people connect ideas and perspective from across the global community. And most recently, Maria took an extraordinary challenge as the global translation lead supporting the Winter Olympics in Italy. So she'll hopefully tell us a little bit more about that as well in the next couple of days. And what I've always appreciated about Maria is her ability to bring together people from different backgrounds and disciplines and turn those conversations into practical insights that all of us can learn from. We're thrilled to have her here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Maria Braddock.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Jan. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. This is my first time moderating this amazing conference, and I'll make it short just because we need to start. So you'll learn more about me in the next few days. Don't worry. Thank you for spending part of your week with us. Now let's get started. Please join me in welcoming Konstantin Drench from Custom MT, and he will officially open the GenAI in Localization Spring Conference 2026.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I think this is the 5th edition of GenAI in Loc. We started when ChatGPT started and followed the progress of adoption of large language models in the industry. I remember the first events when it was just like, what is everybody doing? Then how do we prompt engineer? How do we make flows with large language models? How do we do retrieval augmented generation? And it kept going and going. This edition's flavor of this summer conference is coding with agents or model-assisted MAD coding or vibe coding. And I'll explain in a minute why this is important for folks in localization and why we all want to become builders. But first, please allow me to say a word of thanks. This is a conference organized for the first time ever by a new team with Jill, Stefan, Daria, and Andrew, the crew who have taken over from Kate from the last year. Well done. We have close to 1,000 registrations across all platforms, so you made the event very popular. Big thanks to sponsors. Our headline sponsor this time is Phrase, with Georg L. coming on stage in just a few minutes. And we have an Innovation Challenge sponsor, PoEditor. Please learn about the sponsors, what they have to offer, support them and the event this way. Finally, a big thanks to the members of the program committee. This year, we received a record number of proposals to speak, I think about 50, and they were sifted through and voted upon by 6 people, including Stefan here, Jurek Sisilski, Dave Ruane, Alessandro Benazzi, Michal from Allegro, and yours truly. Well, this being said, I will probably roll on and quickly explain what is important about GenAI in localization and particularly vibe coding this year. I only have 10 minutes, so please bear with me. Here we go. The Time of Builders, this presentation is titled. This year, what we see in the news, let me start a little bit with the news, is an explosive growth, maybe not in so much in innovation, but in usage of AI. Both OpenAI and Anthropic, your favorite Claude, have filed or revealed their finances in the filings for IPOs, and it shows tremendous growth in the dollars and tokens used. OpenAI went from 3.7 billion to 25 billion run rate this year, and Anthropic went from 1 billion in 2024 to almost 47 billion projected this year. So one Anthropic, one Claude, is going to be bigger than the entire translation and localization industry, which puts things into perspective. In addition to this, quite a few tools for coding agents or this model-assisted development have really exploded in usage and in money. There was a deal with Vercel in February, with Replit in March. In May, SAP invested in a German company called NA10, which is basically an orchestrator, workflow builder for large language models. On a 40 million company, they got a 5 billion valuation, which is incredible. In June, Lovable said that they are going into 500 million annual run rate and 1 million projects every month. So crazy numbers in vibe coding tool. And of course, Cursor was acquired by Elon Musk just this month. Right. So even as we speak, deals are cooking, vibe coding is exploding, and we're seeing companies rise out of nothing into huge numbers. It took TransPerfect decades to become a $1 billion company in translation localization, and suddenly these new companies in vibe coding are having this huge impact. Well, it's bad to count somebody else's money. I used to do this a lot while working in research. The important thing is this money comes from people, from developers all around the world who are using these tools to build applications. It's easier than ever to design an application. One person can do it. In my company, we do it for design. We do it for some prototypes. It helps with communicating requirements and sometimes even developing features, of course, with a lot of oversight and review. In practice, it's going to mean that every person or every professional can be an app builder. And this is an important thing because in the past, people used to offer services. Now, increasingly, they'll be offering apps. It is not yet recorded that the vibe coding has moved beyond prototyping into real increases in the number of apps released. So if you look at statistics of Android apps or statistics for iOS apps, games developed on Steam and released, and GitHub repositories created, you see that the uptick is not yet huge. Even if we see some movement with iOS apps, the others don't yet prove it. Perhaps it will take some time, maybe 6 months, maybe 18 months before there is an explosion. So the truth is still out there. It has to be proven. For now, everybody can make a prototype, play with it, create a website, create a design, maybe a simple app. And we'll be trying a lot of this during the hackathon over the next 48 hours. Can we put it into practice? Can we put it to good use? This is the question. At the moment, because everybody is a builder, what happens in the localization story is that the old school localization team sees a lot of pressure from IT teams, developers, other departments who say, all right, we can use large language models for this, use our language AI. And it forces the localization team to adapt, right? This competition from developers says, all right, we need also to become an engineering team. And just a couple of weeks ago at Lockworld in Dublin, I've seen a lot of this. Many localization teams, especially in forward-looking companies with high technical competency and requirements, they are becoming technical teams with developers and engineers on board and actually leading the charge. So what happened is a kind of localization team template can be gleaned from this, that every team would have 3, 4, 2, depending on the circumstance, engineers under the head of localization who would be working on making this workflows, orchestration, running model evaluation, improving the quality over time, working with both models and with linguists to make sure they connect, and actually to build this pipeline of the future. The linguists themselves are transforming, becoming more cultural advisors, prompt engineers, not editing every word anymore, but helping guide these models in the right direction. So with this in mind, we're approaching the age of the builder. Today belongs to people who build, who present their work not as a service, but as a product, as a platform. It is easier than ever to do so. Not as easy to sell because everybody can now be the builder who will be the buyer. That is an important question. We would like with this conference to introduce and spread around the skill of making your own applications, whether it's a translation pipeline, some kind of quality checking, quality pipeline, review tools, capacity planners, whatever you are interested in. We have 4 tasks in the hackathon, which I'll explain later today. And let's see what kind of impact they'll bring to our industry in the next 12 months. We are targeting this event towards having hands-on workshops. Let's see how you like them. Let us know. And then the November event will be targeting more the market impact. With this, thank you very much. Let's call the conference open, and I transfer the word, Maria, back to you.
It's actually to Stefan, I think the word is being transferred, but Maria, slap me on the fingers.
Stefan, I prefer to transfer to Maria. You will forgive me.
You're going to put her on the spot if she hasn't anything prepared. But thank you, Constantine. One of the themes you'll hear again and again throughout this conference is that AI is changing both the tools we use and how organizations think about language and content. And it's my distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker of the conference this morning. We already saw a quick cameo of him. It's the CEO of Phrase, Georg L. And I'm going to keep it very, very short because we're already a little bit behind schedule. And I know that Georg is chomping at the bit to get started. So go ahead, Georg, and get started right away.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm going to keep going unless someone tells me otherwise, and that you can see some slides. One of the joys of having, over the last few months, put a huge effort in turning Phrase into a very AI native business, and I'd be very happy to talk about that. We're doing some incredible, crazy things. Hundreds of agents running around the business, writing production code, reviewing PRs, and doing many things around the go-to-market side of things as well. But anyway, one of the wonderful things about that is that I now write most of my slides by asking Claude to review the context of recent conversations, recent meetings, and so on. So I don't write any more of my own slides. It's like the engineers don't write prompts, they write loops. And as a CEO, I used to write all my own slides. Now I don't. And the nice thing about that is it's anchored to ground truth. So everything you see here was produced just from a few prompts asking to go out and kind of anchoring ground truth across our business. So I'm going to try and take us through 3 areas, and then would love to take some questions as well. I can see the chat just on one side. I'm just going to open the Q&A window here as well. So if people want to drop any questions in chat or Q&A, if I can't address them as I go along, I'll try and address them at the end. And what I'm hoping to do is to share some perspectives that are interesting, grounded in practical reality, but also hopefully a little bit thought-provoking and maybe spicy. I don't know, try and make it a bit more interesting. So I hope the questions will come back in the same way. And one of the reasons I do things like this is actually to interact. And actually, I think I'm at my best not when I'm monologuing, but when I'm interacting with people. So I would love to, take questions. And look, if they're beyond my capability to answer them, I'll just say this. So, but otherwise, I'll do my best. So, yeah, 3 areas that I want to talk about. Commodity trap, the model isn't with the moat or where the value really is, and then the potential to upgrade the role of localization inside our businesses. So commodity trap, there's research there now that tells us something I think a lot of us know, but aren't always comfortable to acknowledge, which is that the cost of translation is dropping through the floor and will effectively become entirely commoditized. The value that we provide as an industry is not in translation and localization. And actually, the provocative statement I made to start with, and I said this at conferences over the last few weeks, is I think we actually need to stop defining ourselves and stop using the language of translation and localization. I think when we go into a room and we talk about translation and localization, we lose the room because people see this as a solved problem. They have a great translation experience on their iPhone. They think it scales from the iPhone. An engineer built something in a weekend. It looks okay. As one of my customers said to me, the engineers will come in and say, it looks like Spanish. And of course, if like me, you don't speak Spanish, okay, well, it looks like Spanish. So the problem is that decision makers inside businesses are not as expert and never will be, and don't care to be, as we are in our field, right? And so it's very important that we have to have the humility, I think, as an industry to acknowledge that we can lose the room very quickly when we talk about translation and localization. And I'll extend that even more provocatively in a moment. So look, I think we have spent a long time as an industry optimizing for what was the right thing at the time, but may just be the wrong thing now, right? Which is volume and cost per word. This may have been right at the time, but I don't think it's the right thing to focus on today because it's not really where the value is. The value isn't in just like reducing the cost. If we as an industry are so focused on reducing the cost per word of everything that we provide, then we're commoditizing ourselves. We're turning ourselves into a cost item. And you know what business leaders do to cost line items? They try and reduce them to zero as much as possible. And so I think that really misses the value that we bring. We know we bring it, right? As an industry, we have an opportunity to be, more confident, I think, more bold, to talk about the transformation that we can apply to content. So when I'm asked what we do, I say, ours is a company, one of the leading companies in the world of what we do. And what we do is we help global brands, very recognizable brands, to transform their content for a global audience. Because how you sell a hotel room to a business traveler is different to how you sell a hotel room to an elderly couple in one language, let alone when you apply 50 different language and cultural contexts on top. And so we can provide, and we the industry, we can provide value in one language and then compound that value across cultures, demographic intersections of age, race, gender, religious affiliation, cultural affiliation, interests, previous purchase history, and so on and so on. So I think there's a window open now to reposition what we do. And the value is in the context. And like everyone is slowly learning this, because for the last 6 months intensely, but even for the previous 2 years before that, slightly less intensely, it's been a huge focus on the models. And like the model is where the value is going to be, and the models can solve these problems. And what we all know, we being people who have played extensively with these models until 2 o'clock in the morning and pick them up off the floor when they break and then fix them again and again and again. We know the models are not the solution. It's the context around the model. It's the harness around the model. So that is something that we have to focus on. It's not about volume and cost per word. It's about intelligence and context. So this is where I said I was going to expand the spicy or provocative statement I think when we go into a room as translation and localization people, and we talk about quality, we lose the room again. And this is tough to sort of internalize, I think. And I said this at Lockworld, and people, half the room was nodding and half the room looked a bit sort of shocked. And it was interesting, right? And this is a bit more nuanced, right? Quality and quality metrics have a place, but I just think we need to reframe how we talk about this, because when we go in and we talk about quality, it's like an engineer going to the CEO and talking about beautiful code. The CEO doesn't care. They just want you to ship. They don't care how beautiful their code is. They just want the business outcomes. So what I'd like to suggest is that as an industry, we need to think more about winning the game we're in by the rules of the game that we're playing. So if the game is selling stuff, is our content selling stuff? If the game is educating a population because we're a government agency, is the population engaging with our content and do they understand it? If the aim of the game is to warn people because we're a 0-day vulnerability announcement from a major antivirus company, then are we warning people? Do they get it? And it's got nothing to do with blur and commit and tur and edit distance and all the other sort of quality stuff, which is frankly academic. It's not practical. The business doesn't care about that stuff. So this might be a bit more nuanced. It's not that like you can put out content that is poor, but it's just define poor by the outcome that the content was intended to achieve. And we'll talk about intention in a little bit as well. So the model isn't the moat. And I think this is really, really important. The model companies would have you believe that, of course, it is the moat, but even they, right? We see today Claude just introduced this new capability to use it in Slack. Why? Because Slack is the company context layer. So in a sense, now this is becoming very clear. Context is king. There was a phenomenal study, very interesting, written in March. This is relatively recent, which academically proved that the harness that you put around a model can improve the output of the model by up to 6 times, which is amazing, right? You can take the best model in the world and then get a 6 times better output if you put the right context around it, the right memory, the right guardrails, the right definitions of done. And of course, this is also why and where and how companies and brands differentiate from one another. If you have Nike, Adidas, Puma, and Reebok all using the same model and all sounding the same, it's a disaster. So how do they sound different? Well, they build a different harness around it, have a different context. So this is also a very valuable insight, because what it means is that as the models themselves improve, as you improve the quality of the fuel you put into the machine, then the whole machine will perform better and better. So the models don't kind of swallow up and overcome the whole infrastructure you put around it. The infrastructure itself benefits from the underlying model, but continues to evolve and produce value on top of those models. So what do we mean by harness? A few things. We talk about capturing the intention. What is the outcome that the content is intended to achieve? And again, with the same source content or even source-less content, you can have very different intentions, and you can drive very different transformations according to the audience that it's being directed at, right? The personalization concept. A company can have glossaries and style guides and translation memories and all of these things, but it can also start to stack these on top of one another. So you could have a company level style guide and then a regional one and a brand specific one under that, and then a product one under that. You stack all of these things, and then you can start to think about the weighting between the layers. And we have a name for that, which I'll come to. Quality, as I said, it's not binary pass fail. It's much more nuanced. It's scored. It's adaptive, which is really important, which goes to the final point around adaptation and closing the loop. So like measuring the outcomes, well, firstly, inputting the desired outcomes, then measuring the actual outcomes, and then driving that content improvement cycle. So content measurably improves over time, and you build value in the system. If any of you, like me, have been playing extensively with Claude and trying to build, I've been trying to build a second brain, sort of LLM wiki into it. It has 18,000 pages in it now. It grows over time. But it's a huge effort. You have to sort of continuously harvest and mine and clean up and then pick up when it falls over and reconnect when it disconnects, all these different things. But when it works, when you get that loop working very well, it's an extraordinary experience. My own setup is Hermes Agentic runtime using Claude with GBrain. If you look it up, Gary Tan, GBrain as a second brain LLM wiki kind of concept. And you put that all together, Telegram on top. I have different agents acting as development team, social media strategist, personal assistant, all these things. Like, it's the context over time when it gets to know you. It's a transformative experience. The same thing is true in these harnesses. So we have 4 product imperatives, we call them, at Phrase. And this slide I actually created in 2 minutes before coming on stage. So I'm reading it for the first time along with you, but this is drawn directly from our internal sources. And there's a longer blog that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. You can find it at phrase.com. If you go to the resources section on the website, and you can find my blog. It's quite long, but it talks about a big transformation we've been driving at the company internally, about how we use AI, which is like very, very heavy. We have every intention of being the most AI-pilled business in Europe. Not the most AI-pilled localization business, even language business, right? But in any industry. And the blog talks about these 4 product imperatives. So they're really 2 reinforcing loops. So headless and guided are the first 2 loops. Headless, I think people know generally what that means. It's exposing capabilities through APIs, MCP, command line interface, and so on. What it actually interestingly doesn't say on here, and should, is that I also see headless as a distribution model for the value that localization teams can provide. So today, I can't see you as an audience, but I'm going to imagine I can see you and ask the question. Put your hands up if you've ever been in that position where you find yourself like running after the business saying, don't do shadow localization, don't use that other tool. We've got a great process, we've got a great team, we've got some software, we've got some assets. Please work with us. We can help you, pull us in upstream, right? I mean, I'm sure that resonates with people in the audience. And so the unfortunate thing is it sort of relegates us a little bit to a bit of a compliance function, right? And like please comply with this company standard. The problem is business people, broadly speaking, don't like compliance, right? Business people, broadly speaking, are pragmatists, impatient, don't love to be told no or slow down, and they will take the shortest path. It's like water. It'll take sort of the shortest path to getting something done. And if that is going online or pressing the little translate button in their new bit of software that they're using, then that's what they'll do. So headless, I think, is a really interesting distribution concept for the value that a localization team can provide, because now you can build all that central infrastructure and quality control and all the terminology and like memory style guides, all of that stuff. But you can then enable the business to be a consumer of that without them even knowing they are a consumer of that. So they no longer have to follow a process and fill in a form. They can just use whatever application they're using in the way they normally use it, and then it will flow headlessly through the language infrastructure and back to them. So now suddenly you as a localization team aren't playing compliance anymore. You're just adding value and you're doing it to everybody, and you can spend a lot less time chasing around. So I think this as a distribution model is really interesting. The guided experience, we talk here about on the one hand, it being like a text-based chat interface across the top of the platform. Fine. Okay, interesting, but like not game-changing. More interesting, we start to bring in visual artifacts from our design library and bring workflows and tables and graphs and analytics into that same experience. So that's more interesting. Most interesting here is the opportunity for the intelligence behind this to be proactive. So, dear user, you asked me to do X. I can do X, but I can also do X more cheaply, or I can do X like better and for a bit more cost. Other people in your company have added this. Actually, the feedback from consumers is that if you optimize in a slightly different way, you'll get a better outcome. Like that sort of proactive intelligence coming back to the user through this interface is something that really excites me a lot. And these two are interesting, right? If you imagine a product like ours like a planet with a sort of hot core of capability, and then the UX as the sort of bit humanity experiences on the outside. What we're really doing here is reaching down inside and pulling the whole thing inside out, like all that headless exposure, and then exposing all of that through natural interface. Yeah, that's a lot more exciting. And then the cool thing about these two as you build them is that you discover all the APIs you wish you had and you haven't done yet, so you go build those. And where the documentation in your existing APIs isn't as good as you want it to be, so you fix that. And then you use a bunch of agents to do all of this faster and faster and faster. The final thing on these two, I promise the other two are a bit shorter. Final thing on these two, which is really interesting, is this concept of encoding the knowledge. Satya Nadella talks about this, the CEO of Microsoft, how it's so important that companies, all companies, encode the knowledge that they have in the heads of their people, in the experience of all the people, into the software and the models that they run. So we have this amazing group of people who have decades and decades of experience of deploying these technologies at a massive range of companies around the world in lots of industries, and they've touched every edge case you can imagine. And the software with its drop-down menus and its tick boxes today, cannot possibly address all of these edge cases, right? So what we do is we're now, and we've been doing this for a couple of months, we've been writing this sort of internal world model, right? If you take the Jack Dorsey concept, this world model of all the edge cases, all the implementations that our forward deployed engineering team have done, and encoding all of those. So then when customers go into something guided like Atlas and they say, hey, I want to do X, it isn't just a case of mechanically like operate the drop-down menus behind the scenes without the user having to do it for themselves, which is nice, but it's actually about taking all of that knowledge and then applying it so that it's almost as if you've got a forward deployed engineer online, like digitally, like the software comes with its own forward deployed engineering. So that's kind of cool. Okay, the other two, I promise more briefly, compounding intelligence. This is this concept that you can apply different transformations to content. And what's interesting is it's not just all the different transformations you can apply, but the metadata that you generate by understanding the weighting. So I overweighted this transformation, I underweighted that transformation, I layered this, or I took a layer out. What was the impact of that on my intention? Did I achieve it or not? And then you build a second order model around that intelligence, and that of course compounds over time for that particular customer. And that becomes something that like creates a tremendous amount of value over time. And the intent proximity is this sort of getting closer to the objectives, right? Understanding on the way in, this content is intended to inspire, educate, warn, engage, whatever it is. Now metrics are going to be daily active usage, basket rate completion, whatever it is. And then on the way out, capturing that and then putting it back in. So this getting closer to the business intention is important. I also think as a practical matter for localization professionals, if you go to the business and you say, I can help you if I understand your intention, right? It's a different conversation. It's a way of like shifting left as well to say, I need to understand the intention, because you tell me the intention, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to custom prompt my system. So I need to know your intention. Like otherwise you get the generic, right? So help me out here, right? I'm going to help you. So intent proximity, I think, is important. So we've got these layers that compound value, and it's an accumulating system. And this is why we started to call ourselves a language intelligence platform rather than a language technology platform, which I think was already a step in the right direction. The industry does need to evolve its vocabulary from decades old terminologies to describe ourselves, and which also still keep us in a box, right? Like, and keep us in the corner. So we've got to evolve how we describe ourselves. And I think language technology platforms was good. We want to take that to the next level. Again, I think when you talk to business people about language technology, it still evokes too much like solved problem. And it also, they hear technology and they think, can we build that, right? And we know they can't. We know it's difficult. Like, we can have that whole discussion debate in the Q&A or however, but when we talk about intelligence, what we mean is, yes, use of AI, but also it's actionable, right? It's like you can do intelligent things. The system's intelligent, what you do with it is intelligent, and it's about like compounding and building that over time. And actually, there's an important point here. in the middle around the ecosystem of third-party tools. This is something I believe in very, very passionately. And as proud as I am of everything that we've built at Phrase and the strength and depth and breadth of our capabilities, I believe very, very strongly that like we should have the humility to understand we operate in a heterogeneous ecosystem where a customer of ours is going to use multiple technologies, oftentimes multiple service providers, and there's good reasons for doing that. And they want to be able to stitch all of those things together. So we need to be a platform, hence language intelligence platform, that customers can build on top of with our rich headless motion, partners can build on top of with integrated solutions. And now those of you that are our customers, you know, as soon as you log in, you literally get like partner solutions on the homepage, and you click a button, you get hundreds of them, and it's integrated, it's visible. We're like actively promoting solutions from partners that even compete with things that we do. Because again, there are certain things that we do that will meet many people's needs, and then a partner will come in with a specialist or an improved capability that might be custom technology, custom services, or both. And we want to enable that so the customer is more successful. So I think this is very important because again, it then enriches the compounding intelligence of the whole system. And this last point, I was posting on LinkedIn the other day, and I realized that I've pinned a video I did in 2023, and it's still up there. And I'm sort of leaving it there deliberately because I made a prediction then, which, you know, we'll see if it turns out to be right or wrong. But one of the things I've been talking about for a while, and I'm yet to see, let's be honest, I haven't seen this really yet, but I still believe it's a sort of directionally correct prediction, is this concept of layering in real-time data. So political events, weather events, seasonality, you know, I think people feel differently when their local team won the championship to when they came close and lost in the final. I think people feel differently the day after an election when their candidate won or lost. I think they feel differently when, you know, it's baking hot outside as it is here, or not. And you know, you can start to see how these types of real-time adaptations could be layered on top of all the demographic stuff we know about our customers. You know, again, age, race, gender, religious affiliation, cultural nuance, previous purchase history, stated interests, right? If I go to Nike.com, maybe I'm following an athlete, maybe I'm following a sport, maybe I'm interested in the technical specs of a piece of clothing or apparel. So, you know, you can know all of that and then layer on top of it this real-time stuff. I think that's part of our future as well. So look, last section, and the role upgrade. It's been called here. So I think I've sort of hinted at a bunch of this stuff, but I think it's about imagining ourselves differently. It's about describing ourselves differently, and I say ourselves for the industry, including ourselves at Phrase. Right? We're not the world's best localization platform, right? We talk about being a leading language intelligence platform. So language, not localization. Language is the programming language of AI. Language is the programming language of people. Language is the emotional connection that we can create with business users and consumers. And if we as a team like really upgrade ourselves, then we avoid being seen as that cost center with the, you know, horrible risk of elimination. And I think what localization teams can position themselves as is like orchestrators of this harness, you know, custodians of the AI. How do you apply AI safely? How do you manage drift? Who's going to look after it when the underlying models change and all the weightings need to be recalculated? Who's going to be responsible for the outcomes? And how intelligently are we as a company taking advantage of all of these new capabilities? Are we just saying now that it's engineering? Are we going to give engineering the legal function and finance and sales and tell them just to code it? Or are we going to respect the intersection of technical ability and functional competence, and then in that intersection position ourselves as a language industry, as orchestrators of these harnesses? And then are we also going to build, we at Phrase, it's interesting that the AI has actually pulled out this sentence. automate meaningful parts of their work and share it with the team. So a couple of months ago, I said to our whole company that we were going to define 5 levels of AI fluency, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that everyone in the company had to be at least a level 2 within 90 days. And this is, as it happens, this is the definition of level 2 that we're using. Automate a meaningful part of your work and share it with someone. That's the definition that we're using internally. So it's pulled that into the slide, which is kind of interesting. We call that builder level. And I think, again, this is, not everyone in localization needs to be an engineer. They can partner with engineers. Not everyone in engineering is going to be a localization specialist, but roles everywhere are merging, and we can build empathy and understanding for one another. And we should be building. I mean, there is a whole build versus buy debate. I've said this on stage before, I am the highest spender on tokens at our company. I say that with mixed feelings because I'm also 50% as efficient as our engineers. In other words, I spend twice as many tokens to achieve a pull request as our engineers do, because I'm not an engineer, right? So there's a level of competence and skill I've reached, and there's a level of competence and skill I have yet to reach. But the point is, I believe in building. And so I don't see it as actually a versus or an either or. I think it's a both and you just got to pick the right things and choose what you build on top of. And then finally, if we get this intent proximity right, then we shift left, we talk in business language, and we move from being a reactive cost center to being a crucial dependency for the rest of the business. I'll share an example with one of our customers. This customer actually presented at LocWorld, and now they have 1/3 of global revenue from international markets that they weren't in before. And this is what helped them get there, right? We have an LSP, one of our capabilities that we built. That was the quote they gave. And then we have a company that's massively reduced their customer support. And the thing about these is, it's not, I mean, like every vendor is going to come and tell some success stories. So I'm not majoring on this. We have lots of it. But the point is, it's measured in business outcomes. That's really the key takeaway here. So 2 last slides. Quote here from a very, very large technology business that you have all used, builds hardware, maybe on some of your desks right now. Orchestration is the demand. The models are there, MT's there. It just takes a lot of effort to orchestrate what you're going to use and when, and that's how you generate real value. 3 takeaways. Commodity trap is real. Reposition now. Focus less on driving down, well, let me put a slight nuance on it. Driving down cost per word is important, right? It's just not the whole ball game. It's important because if you know, or if you don't, then look up. And if you want me to explain in the Q&A, I can do that. A thing called Jevons paradox. It's the basic principle is the cheaper you make unit economics, the more units people use. And so actually total addressable market grows. So cost per word going down is a good thing. Cost of AI should be going down, except we've got a few IPOs coming up for some of the frontier models. So I don't know if the cost per word is actually going to go down. But the point is, it's not the whole ball game. The ball game is something else entirely, and that's just an enablement. So acknowledge that cost is going down. Focus on the quality, the value that can be created outside of that. The model's not the moat, the harness is, and we need to upgrade ourselves and how we talk, move beyond translation and localization and quality. Thank you. I put my email address. I put a link to the blog, my LinkedIn, X. I try to be very approachable and available. So I would love feedback on what you've heard today. I'd love critique. And if people have any questions, then hopefully we have a bit of time to answer them as well. I don't see any at the moment, but please pop them in if you'd like to.
We are chomping at the bit with questions.
Thank you, Georg. And I love that you said that you perform better when interacting with people, because that's exactly what we are going to do today over the next few days. And we can go to the Q&A now. Jan has been monitoring the live stream session and also our Slack community. Jan, what questions do we have for Georg?
I don't hear you, Jan. I think you're muted. You're muted.
I can jump in if you want, and we can turn to Jan in just a second. Georg, thank you so much for inspiring us for half an hour, 45 minutes, and making us think out of the box. I had a million questions, but the first one that came to mind for me right away was that we've been talking about breaking out of our translation box for a while now, and you really are breaking it wide open with this vision of phrase. And so I have a very practical question for you that came to mind right away, because we've been very used to selling localization, and even in your speech, there was several times where you alluded to the fact that we're in the localization business, so to speak. But what the vision that you're presenting is way beyond localization. I would think that it's more into the realms of multilingual content creation, and then you're talking about intelligence mixed into it as well. How do we sell that, and how does the perspective change? Because it's easy enough to say this is what we're going to be presenting and offering up to the world, but that's not, I think, traditionally the audience that we've been selling our services to. So I would think that comes with certain complications, and it puts us in competition with some untraditional competitors, I would think. What's your vision on that?
Yeah. So firstly, I guess it's worth acknowledging how hard it is to break habits, right? So you hear me say localization, and sometimes sometimes it's an accident, and sometimes it's to be specific about the sort of roles and audience and departments that I'm talking about. So we still very much focus on enabling localization teams, localization managers, developers that support localization as that terminology is used today. I guess what I'm calling for is that I think our industry has some very strong headwinds, and we see localization teams being reduced in size, even eliminated in some cases. And I think it's because the business in those cases has erroneously believed that this is a solved problem. And so I think the path out of this is to sell back to the business a different vision that says, actually, language is important, and language is the programming language of people. So if you want an emotional connection with consumers or business users of your applications and services, you cannot simply do this with raw machine translation and without giving it any thought to getting the nuance absolutely right. I think it does potentially get us, and when I say us, I mean us at Phrase, but also I mean us in the industry, again, outside of the box. So I talked about headless being a distribution model. That for me is really exciting to see how that plays out, because now a localization team can go to any function at all and say, I don't need you to fill in my form. I don't need you to follow my process. Here's an MCP. Just hook this up to Jasper, Claude, Harvey, whatever system you're using, and we're good. And maybe they don't even need to talk to them. They just get IT to do it, and it happens in the background. So that, I think, is pretty interesting to explore as well.
My phone's been blowing up. I know that Kostya has a question at the ready as well, and then we'll switch to Jan to get the live audience involved. But Kostya, do you want to pitch your question to Georg as well? Maybe he's not unmuting himself either.
Yeah, sorry. I can ask his question because he put it on YouTube. I'm sorry,
okay,
it's
good.
a little bit sometimes confusing between
yeah, no problem.
Slack and YouTube. So Constant asked one question I really liked. So DeepL went big due to product simplicity, something that could be scaled massively. Now, tools like agent builders, orchestrators, and IDEs require more technical to use. Can they grow as much? I think this question, George, is very interesting. How simplicity versus this whole new thing of AI comes along.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of angles to think about this from. The first one is DeepL and others who've put in huge amounts of effort into building essentially competitors to the foundation models. There is in my view, a structural challenge for them, which is that the world is not unimodal. And so today, like my company and many others is spending a ton of money with Anthropic, and it's just going up and up and up. Now, I do believe it'll come down a bit they yesterday enabled the capability for you to define a default model across your company. Until yesterday, you couldn't set the default model for your Anthropic instance. If you're an Anthropic admin like I am, that is unbelievably irritating. So they would just keep moving the default model up, and you just had to beg people, please don't use Opus for everyone, right? And now you can set a default. The point is, Anthropic's like incredible rise creates an imperative. It creates a space like Amazon's "Your margin is my opportunity" motto. It creates a space for open source models and on-premises models to come in and play an important role. Like not everyone in my company necessarily needs to use Anthropic for everything. So there's now a real commercial imperative for us to very actively evaluate whether it's cheaper for us to put a box on someone's desk or a box in a server room or a box on AWS and run a local model instead. And then like there will be models for many different use cases. So these companies that are sort of essentially betting their whole company on like, my model is the best. Well, you have to wake up every day and be the best every day. And like, I know from the data that is not the case. Because we aggregate models and we're a harness on top of all of these models, we can see the data based on usage from customers, and we can see that the world is not unipolar in terms of like model consumption. So that's kind of the first thing I would say. Simplicity is good. Like if you take the Elon heuristic of redefine the requirements, then delete, then simplify, then automate, like simplicity is really, really good. But if you are like a Phillips head screwdriver and someone has a flat head screw, well, it doesn't work. So you need to have a bunch of tools in the toolbox. That's the first thing I'd say. The second one is like context and harness engineering is not simple. What can be simple is how users interact with these things. So you can have a team that reach deep into the guts of these systems and set it up to do amazing, unbelievable things, and then users that have no idea of what's going on in the background and never should and never would and aren't interested. And that is a very sensible way for things to work. So you should have, for some reason I hear Robin Williams' voice of the genie in Aladdin, like unbelievable power, but then users just have like an easy interface, right? That's how I would think about it.
Georg, we have a question in the chat that I wanted to lob your way because I'm quite interested in that one as well. I think most of us are kind of intrigued by what you said about building your own wiki and your second brain, so to speak. We've been involved in that a little bit ourselves as well. And there's a question from Mihai in the chat that says, was Obsidian considered by Georg as part of his wiki LLM? Or why did you choose your current setup? Can you recommend it? Is there something you would have done differently if you had to start all over again? And maybe give us some tips for people that are at the start of this exercise.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I actually started out using Obsidian and switched. A couple of my colleagues use Obsidian and love it. So I'm not sure that it's, I think it's personal choice. And what I did, of course, was I went into Claude and I asked it, can you compare these two and what are the use cases they're good at and so on. I found GBrain, and the G doesn't stand for Georg, it stands for Gary, who's the person that wrote it. So Gary Tan, Gary with 2 R's and then T-A-N, he's the president of Y Combinator. And I first found him because he actually wrote something else called GStack. So if you're like me, I never wrote a line of code in my life before February. And now I'm coding like constantly. In fact, I have things running right now. I can share my screen and show you open and Claude code running. GStack helped me enormously because it's like having a whole team of experts in your pocket. So there's a /plan CEO review, and then it just asks you a bunch of questions to help you structure your thinking. Plan eng review, and it like asks you a bunch of technical questions. I understand 10% of what it's asking me, but you sort of do a little bit of that kind of makes sense, and it always makes a recommendation, and you go through and answer the questions, and then it will ship it, it will do a QA, it will deploy it, so all these / commands. So that's actually how I got started on coding, because I found it very intimidating as a non-technical background, and these / commands really just helped me. So I found gstack first, and then gbrain. I thought, well, that kind of makes sense because it's from the same guy. And the other thing about gbrain that I liked was that it was positioning itself very much as a memory layer for agents, which was where I was really trying to get to. Now, I'll extend the question slightly. What I feel like I've had enormous value. So now when I talk to Claude or my Hermes agents that are connected to this gbrain as well, they have a massive context on my business, like this is being recorded. There are themes in here. Every theme gets a markdown page. The people get marked down. It's all linked. So it has an amazing context. What I think is really interesting is where this goes, because individuals now have some really good tools for memory. But then how do you link those together? So if I've got a brain and my colleague has a brain and so on, how do you link those together to get the power of multiple brains? How do you respect privacy where appropriate? And then how do you stack that across a company? So then you've got like individual, team, department, company brains. And this no one has cracked yet. No one has actually written the system yet for role-based access control, auditability, rollback, injection hardening, all those things that you would want as you think about the layers of memory across a company. There's some businesses that I'm following. There's one called Super Memory that looks kind of interesting, but I haven't seen anyone crack this at a company of more than like 10 people so far. Everyone that's saying they're doing it at like company level is basically using one big gbrain, and it's a company of 10 to 30 people. I haven't seen anyone structure it yet. But I have talked to some AI researchers who are looking at this. So I think there's a lot of work happening, and I'm sure there'll be breakthroughs soon.
Might it be an idea for Phrase to get involved? And it's a new business model for Phrase. Maybe you guys can do it in a multilingual way here.
Maybe.
Very good.
I see someone said no need for human post edit, which I just want to tackle.
Yeah.
I don't believe in zero human for anything, including post editing. If you look at that video I put up in 2023, it talks about content explosion, which we haven't seen yet, but I still believe we will see, again, linked to Jevons paradox. And it's just that, like, the machines, whether it's MT or LLM or whatever comes next, the machines are getting better and better all the time. And as they get better, businesses will get more confident to do more things in more use cases, and so volumes will grow. But as they get better and better, they're not going to be perfect, and the humans still need to be the orchestrators. They need to run the harness. So I'd say two things. One is just that narrow, like, post-editing piece will be a diminishing percentage. It just will be. But a small percentage of a very large number may still be a large number. So, like, the total amount of human post-editing that happens in the world may even grow, but it won't grow nearly as much as the amount of volume of, like, total content, because the machines get better and better. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I actually think that people that are good at post-editing are also potentially, if they are minded to kind of take on new skills, is to be very good at, like, helping do evaluation, helping run the harness itself. So some of those people can be very good at that other work upstream, and humans need to be involved at both ends.
Awesome. Jan, is there anything else from the live stream that you want to ask Georg?
No, right now not. But again, maybe this is the call for everybody. Please use the live stream and our chat on YouTube to comment, to say what you like, what you don't like, what you believe is true or maybe not. Give us our take, please.
Yeah.
And Georg has been very gracious with his time and availability. I'm sure if somebody has a specific question for you about your keynote, you'll be available for that. Georg, I sent you a connection request 2 years ago, I think, and you're one of the only people I'm not connected to in localization, so I'm pinning you against the wall this morning. After this, we're going to be connected, I'm
people
sure.
on spot, right?
I'm after this we're going to be connected, and I might even send you a couple of questions later on for my platform. Thank you so very much for inspiring us. And I'm going to give the word to Jan and Kostya for the hackathon and the continuation of the conference. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That,
Thank
I
you.
think, set a great level of technical expertise from the get-go. I think speaking about harness and MCP and everything that Georg illuminated was really a good way to start the conference. And
I need a second brain is what I've realized today.
Oh,
This is, working with one brain is no go anymore from now on.
you will have to take a S brain, not a G brain, an S brain, please. Yeah, me too, please.
No, it opens a wormhole of all possible jokes about multiple brains. But let's proceed and get to the point that many people are waiting for, which is the hackathon. Jan, have you ever participated in a hackathon in your life?
I have to confess that I haven't. I have seen them all over. I have been curious about them, but I haven't personally been involved in any. So this is a good opportunity now.
Interesting. I did take part in a video game development hackathon. They called Games Jam. My son likes making video games, and he needed somebody to be there with him in the first one. So I do have the experience, and also hosting a researchathon where we don't develop things, but we delve into topics. Okay, so let me quickly present what is the hackathon about, and then we can discuss.
Excellent.
Vibe coding is a whole arc with GenAI localization. As you probably know, we have an event every month online, and the past 2 events in April and May were dedicated to that topic. In April, Yurik and Julia kind of announced the topic. They demonstrated how they vibe code. Julia shown her system that she made and actually offered to users. She works in-house in the localization team in Dublin, and Yurik works on the LSP side, on the vendor side, and he made vibe coding. I think he vibe coded a connector using Crowdin at that time. Right, so it was hugely popular. 550 people registered, so really big topic. But it was kind of a high-level overview, demonstration of how it happens. Then in May, we had a tutorial with Maria Suhareva from Siemens, and that was like how to vibe code, a 2-hour, 2.5 session. This was with OpenClaw, an open source tool where you can plug an open source model and be independent from the big providers such as Claude Code, Lovable, ChatGPT, and so on. It was very technical, so it was really for the technically apt people. We spent a lot of time setting it up, and then there was a need for a follow-up session to troubleshoot those who have installed Claude Code but had problems. So in the conference of this week, Maria returns with Codex, a much easier to use tool. So if you're just starting and you would like to have a tutorial, stay on for day 3. This is where Maria will kind of walk you through the basics. However, the main dish for this event is the hackathon, basically a competition of people who are already doing vibe coding, whether on beginner level or an advanced level. I saw registrations from both sides, people who are just starting, maybe transitioning from a localization project manager to a more kind of engineering role, and also hardcore CTO level engineers. So I don't think this competition is going to be very, very fair. What do you think, Jan? Do we triage into beginners and advanced people so that they compete in two different leagues?
I guess so. I'm not live. But
all right. So
now I'm live. So I don't know. This sounds like a very unfair situation. So, but I think we should just roll.
We should just roll. Okay. Well, I think we'll separate the work from advanced developer level people and from beginners so that they compete in two different leagues. You will need, of course, to have your own tool. You probably can do with any tool. I prefer Base 44 for myself and Lovable, which are very visual and easy to use, makes a great front end. You can also do it with just ChatGPT or OpenClaw if you are a proponent of open source tools. Take your poison, select your poison, whatever works. If it's gin and tonic or just lemonade, your choice. Then we do have a Slack channel so that you can discuss with your fellow participants. And we do have a developer on duty in the Slack channel who would advise you if you have any questions. If you're just starting with vibe coding, you probably will have to learn that simply approaching make me this kind of app is not the best strategy. Whenever you want to change something, it will override big parts of it, create dependencies. So there is a methodology to vibe coding, like splitting in different repos, adding special services that can deploy your product on AWS or another hosting. So there is a lot of know-how in order to do it right. But once you have it, one person can do the job of 5 or 10. No more need for junior level coders, which is another problem for another group of people. Anyway, so join the Slack channel from the conference. There is the hackathon, and you can discuss there, pose questions, and get advice. This is the code to join Slack, and I'm sure that Jill and the other people on the organizing committee will post links in the YouTube channel and in the conference websites so that you can join anytime. Hopefully everybody already took the picture of the QR code and you'll find the link. Next, please allow me to present 4 challenges. To find the challenges for this hackathon, I went around buy-side localization teams and pinged quite a few of industry connections to say, all right, what is your next unresolved need? What do you think is interesting to develop for the industry, which is not yet covered by mainstream tools, so that people can compete in making this application and posting it on the hackathon website. And a few ideas came up. We selected 4 of them, and so here they are. They'll be now also published on the main hackathon website, so you can review them there and consult them anytime. The first challenge is a quality pipeline under the name Mind Your Context. This is a bit kind of leaving details to your imagination. You have a lot of flexibility with this channel. You're building a LLM validation pipeline, which looks at translation in context. Whether it's a website, a video, a dialogue between characters, maybe an audio stream, or it looks at the images, screenshots, PDF blueprints, you decide. So you find the right context which is relevant for you. Create a testing data set, and then the validator will say whether the translation fits that kind of context or not. And there are two options how to deploy: a quick validator, which can work across millions of words, or as a kind of corrective infrastructure, which looks at already published content and from time to time improves the errors made by other AI models. So that's the challenge number one. You can choose any of the 4 challenges, or even design something completely outside the box and impress the jury and with something totally creative. Number 2 is a very common need to evaluate which model fits best for the language. There's a number of evaluation tools out there. Now you know that there's a new model coming to market, which is prominent every few weeks. How does a localization person compare them? This is the answer. So you create a way how to evaluate models, either with a human oversight or without humans, and quickly generate an answer. It has to have different rules that you can apply depending on the context, or depending on what is the purpose of the model, and then you can visualize it in any way you'd like. I think the basic infrastructure of this is very simple. The question is how this evaluation tool going to be structured. What's the framework? Is it looking at errors? Is it looking at market fit? Is it looking at fluency? So this I leave to your creativity. Suggested by Nicolas Jadot from Trendio. Number 3 has been suggested by Hunju from Autodesk, and this is a kind of a variation of the need which goes back to 2007 when Acrolinks was founded, a website quality scanner, right? So let's say you have a website which is in multiple languages. It has HTML pages and it's been translated over the years by multiple translation providers, in-house, LSPs, freelancers. And now you'd like to know the quality, and also you'd like to know the market fit, how strong the copy is for that market. Is there something to be improved? So this website reviewer, you build an app which downloads the website, looks at pages in different languages, and then produces scores, suggestions to correct, and potentially even syncs up with the translation memory, so that the person making the corrections can immediately write those corrections to translation memory so that the error doesn't repeat itself. What do you think, Jan? Is it a useful tool in the LSP business or in the localization team? Jan is not live. All right. I'll push on. Back to you.
Here we go. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, these kind of assistants, virtual assistants for our day-to-day life, I think, you know, we need to make use of it, and quality estimations or valuation of new models, all this is really needed. So cool. I'm really excited to see what will happen, what people will come up, and
we'll hear from the people in a moment. Thank you, Jan. Let me continue. The 4th challenge is the last one, so-called Localization Manager's Dream by Giulia Tarditi from Revolut. Julia looked into capacity planning and tickets, so similar maybe to a support system for a localization team, which is increasingly moving from being a language services and linguistics into the domain of engineering. Today, an in-house localization team receives requests to correct JSON, to provide variables, placeholders, to advise on code internationalization. So this kind of requests require pardon me for tautology, tracking. They require that you have the linguistic tickets, engineering tickets, capacity planning, how many engineers are needed, how many hours. So a manager's kind of dream. can you build that dream for the market, specifically tailored for localization and specifically tailored for a team which has both engineering and linguistics under their belt? So this is it. These are the 4 challenges. Feel free to use one of them or to invent something and propose your own creative app for the localization industry for the next stage. The hackathon is 48 hours, so we will hand in the work at 3:30 on Friday. The applications will be published on the website. So this is a link, tinyurl.com, MAD for localization. The conference team will move your application, any video that you produce, explanation or dataset, whatever you'd like to add to the presentation, to the website, and then we'll have the judging. And for the judging, we have here Stefan, Monica, and Gergana, who will ask questions, look at your apps, validate that everything's working, and generally kind of interpret the apps for the audience.
It's a set of very tough judges there.
Yes. Yes. So, Stefan, Gergana, Monica, what do you think? How would you judge this type of application? What would be your criteria?
Like for me, the main thing is that it's going to be tricky to make this thing perfect in a first go. But if it can inspire me and maybe motivate somebody on the business side to gain interest in the person who's been active producing this vibe coding solution, then I think that wins a lot of points for me. So practicality and application in real life is what I'm really looking for, I think. How do my fellow judges see that?
Maybe like making deliberate choices is quite important, that they don't just leave it to a model. And I also really appreciate when people can be self-aware and they know where the system or their code is fragile or vulnerable and inform us unprompted. I find that quite important, the self-awareness of imperfectness of vibe coding.
Yeah, in 48 hours, making a fully functional, protected, secure, and robust application is probably a dream. But
well, come on, we have heard this is possible.
Yeah.
So if I need to jump in, for me, it's choice and scalability. What I like also is how a particular solution can be adapted to particular market. That's why I'm a big fan of, are we fit for this market solution, and also for the mind the context. These two are the hardest to tackle in general right now if you want to do a fit for a purpose solution right now.
Excellent. Thank you. So we'll be asking questions, presenting your work, and the best work will make it to the showcase. And then we'll have a participant vote and award the prize money. With us today,
may the best gladiator win. Are there a lot of gladiators, Constantine?
We have, I think, 30 or 35 registered participants to the hackathon. That was yesterday. I guess since yesterday, a few may have signed on. And we actually have 2 participants with us, William and Gary. Let's say hello. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. What do you think about the challenges? Is it doable? Can we accomplish this within 48 hours?
I think we can. I think we can. So saying some hi and introducing. I'm William. I'm Brazilian, living in Berlin for the past 4 years. A little bit of my background. I hold 1 bachelor in English linguistics and another bachelor in computer science. I do have MBAs in artificial intelligence and UX writing. And I've spent the last 16 years working with language. The first 8 of them in the classroom, teaching English. And the last 8 ones in the intersection of UX, conversational design, and localization. And what I usually do nowadays with this AI power that has been granted to us is I build localization processes. So I make sure that product marketing and engineering, they communicate with one another to clarify, the roles in the process. And we make sure that each team delivers what they have to deliver to make the process smoother. So yeah, but I believe
I'm so happy to see that we're getting the best of the best involved with this challenge, Constantine, and we're even coaxing William away from the World Cup for a minute to participate in this. That's not always easy to do with a Brazilian, and Gary is a very well-known entity as well in the coding world. So very happy to see you, Gary. What's your vision on the hackathon?
Hi, everybody. Just looking forward to trying to build something. Honestly, I've been experimenting with vibe coding since February, and I built a few projects. Not too much in language, except one thing was a data science competition on Kaggle, building basically a translation engine for an ancient language using a Google research LLM. It was fascinating, doing fine tuning and competing a bunch of Chinese teams. And I used vibe coding to work my way up. Really exciting. And it was so cool. I love ancient languages too. But myself, I studied electrical engineering at the university, but I've worked as a translator and editor, of course, more in recent years. And yeah, I've been doing a fair number of MOOCs over the years, Andrew Ning machine learning MOOCs. So this is a chance to try something. And I've also done a couple hackathons. My wife is Estonian, and we lived in Estonia for 7 years. And there I was doing some Ruby on Rails stuff. And I went to 2 hackathons, a lot of fun, on-site hackathons, built something in 48 hours, Garage 48 they're called. So that was very cool. But I'm ready to get started.
All right, my brain is hurting just listening to you guys and
I'm sorry,
figuring out what you guys are gonna do, right, Jan?
Absolutely, I'm super excited. Yeah? I want to see what comes out here. I will post in our chat on YouTube. I will post the 4 different options again. Somebody was looking to trying to find the hackathon on Slack. It should be relatively easy. It's one of the channels at hackathon. So let us know in the chat if you are still struggling to find it. Otherwise, just post in the general chat and we will guide you to that. Back to you guys.
There's a quick question in the chat from Marta Kalava. And she's asking, is there any, how can I start building anything if I don't have the grinds on how to use the tools, the proper prompting? Is there any training that she can get on vibe coding impromptu? And Gary is already sharing a link, so that's probably a good way to go.
We do have
Marta.
Maria with Codex within the program of the conference, and I guess for Marta, I think the best would be to network Marta with a team. I know from Custom T some of our best people participating, so Marta, if you'd like to join and learn together, this is possible. All right, with this, I know we're at the stroke of time. I call the hackathon open. Good luck to everybody involved. Thank you to William and Gary for coming on stage. Let's see what can be built. We'll check in with the folks building tomorrow at the conference start and see how the progress is going, what needs to be improved. And there we go. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
Maria,
you
what's
very
next?
much. So we are moving on to our next speaker. She's Amy Grace O'Brien, a Senior Linguistic Quality Manager at Adobe. And today she will share how Adobe is approaching terminology in an AI-driven environment and what that means for multilingual content at scale. Amy, the stage is yours.
All right, I'm unmuted. There we go. Hi, thanks for having me. I don't know if you can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amy. I'm a Senior Linguistic Quality Manager at Adobe. I'm in the GenAI Core Services team. So today I'm going to walk you through and talk about something that I genuinely couldn't find anywhere in the market. So I ended up just building it, and it's called Term Scout, and it's our in-house multilingual terminology extraction tool. By the end of this session, I want you to walk away with a clear picture of how it works, what we learned building it, and what it means for people in this room that work with terminology every day. Right, so I want to first actually ask, how does terminology get to your term base? So for some of you, you'll have product teams who maybe proactively submit terms, product names mainly, or feature names, that kind of thing. But for everything else, the honest answer for most teams is that it's reactive. A translator flags something, a PM raises a query, someone notices an inconsistency that's maybe already in production in 10 languages. Other options for extracting terminology are maybe vendor tools, but they were bilingual only. I tested a few of them, were kind of noisy, slow, and expensive when it comes to what you've got, at least if you can build something in-house, right? So here's the thing, the answer was already there, the data was we already had it. Every TM contains, terminology in every locale. It's grounded usually in real usage, already translated. So we just needed a way to surface it. And I went to the market, I spoke to vendors and tool providers and told them what I wanted. They told me it couldn't be done, or that it wasn't possible. So I did it anyway. So Term Scout, it wasn't built from scratch. We partnered with Alpha CRC, who already had a solid multilingual extraction engine. And I want to give them a big shout out there, because what we brought to the table was a very specific set of requirements that didn't exist anywhere in the market. Simultaneous extraction across all locales from single TMX, noise reduction, tuned for translation memory data, inconsistency detection at the target level. What else? Cross-referencing against an existing term base, that was key, and a direct integration into our approval workflow. We didn't have to come out and back in again. So Alpha were fantastic partners. I want to give them proper credit. The initial building block of the bilingual term extraction is theirs, but the brief was ours. And that brief is what makes Term Scout different from anything else out there. And I want to just thank Alpha for sticking with me as the product manager building the tool. All right, so the timeline. Was this right? Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, so Term Scout, it didn't arrive fully formed. V1 was generally pretty scrappy. It was an offline Excel report, a single TMX file at a time, basic term data. It was useful, but it was slow and manual. V2 is where it started to feel like a real tool, a proper web-based UI, support for multiple files, email notifications, and then the first integration with QuickTerm, which is Adobe's term base. And then V3 is where it became fully formed, direct term submission, monolingual terminology extraction as well. And we had support for websites as well and various other file formats. So it was just a lot more significantly streamlined user experience. So the jump from V1 to V3 is basically a jump from, I guess, proof of concept to a production tool that we genuinely trusted to run on our TMs. And then we're not done, but we'll talk about more on that later. So for now, I'm going to show you a demo of it, basically. So this is the tool. We come here to extract the extract the terms. We support various formats. I thought it'd be, in the interest of time, I thought I'd just do a quick monolingual version. This is a blog at Adobe that we can find online. So I thought I would just show you monolingual. You can specify whether it goes to child levels, child pages, but for now I'm just gonna tell it to focus on the same main page. You can tell it how many terms you want to extract and give it a minimum number of occurrences. So I'm just gonna say two for now because it's a short blog. If you want, you can specify a particular domain of area of expert, I guess a domain in which you want it to focus on, like digital marketing or journey orchestration, or any area you want really. Let's just give this a test. You can send this in and it uploads the file and gets to work basically. So then it gives you the report dashboard, and then these are my reports here. This is the one that's in progress. But what we're really here for is the multilingual aspect of it. So let me show you a multilingual version. So you have here the format, which is in table format. You have the term, the minimum of the frequency of the term, how many times it exists, AI generated definition, and then context sentences from the actual TM, part of speech, and then the variations. So the green ones here are ones that I've already submitted to the term base. And red, you see here, red is where it shows that it's inconsistent. So it may be not, but there's multiple. So for lookup, for example, we have various versions in German, and all the languages that I've given it, you can see I gave it multiple different TMs here. And anything that's red is inconsistent according to what our threshold is. And so I won't be able to submit that to the term base. You can pan here, you can filter on the locales that you want to show or not show. And then you can filter across consistent or inconsistent candidates. But essentially the key aspect here is, like I say, is that we're showing the inconsistencies. So if I wanted to add a term to the term base, I would select it here. This is, actually I need to first toggle to the consistent candidates, say attribution model, and I can submit this to QuickTerm because this comes from our enterprise analytics software. So I would just submit it and confirm and submit it. There we go. I'll then receive that in QuickTerm and approve it, and all the translations will be there. But for example, here's an example of what I wanted to show, the example of inconsistent term candidate, which I'll toggle back now to all of it so you can see. We have experience ID, I think it was. I just wanted to show you an example. Oh yeah, experience cloud ID, for example, which is a pretty key term. So in French, we have multiple variations. You can see here all the various variations. So this, we could, for example, I could export this in Excel format, send to the linguist and say, hey, we have all these inconsistencies. Let's clarify what the term is and add it to the term base. So that's the demo. Let me walk you a little bit through what's actually happening under the hood at a high level. So it starts with the multilingual TMX file. That's your input. Term Scout then splits it into manageable chunks to process in parallel, which is how we handle large TMs without hitting context limits. And then on the source language side, the tool extracts the term candidates, assigns a part of speech, calculates frequency so that it adheres to the minimum amount you've specified, generates definitions and context sentences, and then runs hallucination removal step to make sure that the AI output is actually grounded in the TM content. And then on the target side, this is the bit that makes Term Scout different. It's running that same process simultaneously across all your target languages, not a single locale at a time. So all of them at once. So you get frequency data, variance detection for every locale in a single run. And then the source and target results then get merged into a single multilingual report, a web-based, filterable, exportable Excel file if you need to work with it offline. And the whole thing, like I said, is, as you saw, is integrated with QuickTerm, which is Adobe's term base, so that validated terms can be submitted directly into the term base without everyone having to copy and paste. Everything's there. Oh, and we also can edit the definition. I forgot to show that as well. If you're not happy with it, right there, you can tweak it before you submit. Okay, here we go. So as we move towards, I thought I'd go over some use cases of how we're using it, but basically as we move more towards automated translation workflows, whether that's MT or LLM based, consistent terminology becomes critical because, essentially human eyes are not necessarily looking at it. So when there's no human in the loop to catch the inconsistencies, the term base has to do that job instead. For marketing content, we needed AI and enterprise level concepts translated consistently across an LLM-driven transcreation workflow. So we ran Term Scout through the DX marketing TMs, focusing on the themes that we knew were upcoming, such as AI, machine learning, jargon, enterprise marketing terminology, etc. And we pulled out 87 terms that we didn't even know were missing until Term Scout found them. And then the result was a higher accuracy, like I said, strengthened semantic grounding, which is basically a fancy way of saying that we gave the LLM the vocab it needed to not hallucinate on the brand terms. And then for Substance 3D, we're doing something slightly different there. The documentation is moving towards MT via Strand, and so we wanted to make sure that the engine respects existing approved translations from day one. So we've ran Term Scout through the existing TMs, extracted the key product terms, feature terms, and with their validated translations, and injected those directly into Systrand user dictionaries per locale. So there's no more manual glossary work, no post-editing on known terms. The MT output is terminology compliant before the first segment is, even sent for translation. Okay. So then here's where we talk about the savings. So the numbers are pretty stark, right? 19 days was the average time it took for the 85 terms that we extracted in 10 locales. 7 and just one with Term Scout, of course. And then $7,000 versus 149. And that's for a single extraction run across multiple locales. Even if we did a few more to make sure we get exactly what we're looking for, we're still massively saving. But if you run this quarterly across your full TM estate, then the savings compound pretty quickly. But honestly, the time saving, I think, is more stark, because that's basically a linguist's month, right? Handed right back to them to do the work that actually requires their expertise. So these are the 4 things that, if you want to replicate this, will maybe bite you if you're building something similar. Lemmatization, this was the most persistent. AI would constantly extract, like workflows instead of workflow, or assets instead of assets. So we have to build in a post-processing to normalize the root forms. And then on the target side, this also meant normalizing across, variants across locales. And of course, every language doesn't act the same way. So plurals, inflected forms, the same stem, it needed to be counted as the same term to get an accurate consistency score. And we also had to decide what inconsistent actually meant for us. We landed on 75% as our threshold. If a term is translated the same way 75% of the time or more, we considered it consistent. Requiring 100% is pretty tricky, right? It would flag almost everything, and a real multilingual TM where some variation is perfectly normal. Term composition as well was subtler, but just as annoying. If you have, AEM, or we had things like product names like Adobe Experience Manager and assets, both of them in the term base, but sometimes Term Scout would flag them as a new term, Adobe Experience Manager assets, when they're just 4 terms that already, 2 terms already exist in the term base stuck together. So we solved this by passing the existing term base and filtering compositions at extraction time. And then domain focus. So without any guidance, the extraction was broad, and it could be a bit too broad to be useful, I guess. It pulled in some various kind of candidates that weren't really terminology. So we had to sort of set a sensible default whereby if nothing was, you saw there was the domain area where you could specify, and if nothing was specified there, Term Scout would then focus on technical terms, product and feature names. Just that's what we wanted. Oh, and business jargon as well. So that would cover the majority of the use cases that we were looking for without having to, specifically tell it this every time. But like I said, we added that domain field so that users could drill down if there was a particular area they wanted to focus on. And then lastly, prompt engineering. This turned out to be quite iterative, which I think most people expect, right? But getting the LLM to identify term candidates the way a human terminologist would require, required multiple rounds of refinement, and the initial outputs were a bit broad, so we ended up pulling out full phrases and TM patterns that clearly weren't terminology. So each revision of the prompt brought it closer to what a linguist would actually flag. But it's not a one and done exercise. You do need to sort of reiterate the prompts as you move across different domains and especially different content types as well. So let's talk about what this actually means for linguists, because I know some of you are maybe sitting there thinking, wondering if I've just spent 20 minutes in explaining, how to automate maybe a linguist job. I definitely haven't. What TermScout actually does is get rid of what I call the grunt work, right? Work that nobody really wanted to be doing anyway, the TM trawling, the manual searching, I think this term should be in the term base. Let me go and add it and hope that it gets actioned on. That's gone. The AI does that upstream now, invisibly, before anyone has to sort of ask. So we're moving from like a reactive to a proactive. And then what's left is the interesting work, right? What linguists are actually, their expertise is. So when TermScout flags an inconsistency, say a term that's been translated 3 different ways across a locale, a linguist has to make a call. Is that an intentional variation? Is it one of those translations that's wrong? Was it maybe a context issue? Either way, it surfaces something that you can fix. And then that root cause analysis and that decision, X is correct, Z is incorrect. That's expert work, and you can't automate that. That's on the linguist. And then there's a bit that I'm excited about, which is the fact that our terminologists are now spending more time adding metadata or relevant metadata, usage notes, guidance on when to use X over Y, contextual examples, stuff that used to be, a nice to have. It's now critical infrastructure, right? Because that metadata doesn't just help human translators. It's what AI systems learn from. Linguists are writing these notes every day. Essentially, they're essentially training the LLMs of tomorrow without necessarily realizing it. So I wouldn't say that the role has shrunk. It's just, I think it's moved, I guess, further up the value chain, which I think is where it should have been anyway. And then where are we going with this? So we've already taken the first steps beyond the tool. We've now connected TermScout directly to our TMs via API, and that's running automatically in the background. No manual triggers. No one has to remember to kick off an extraction. Terminology candidates are surfacing continuously, which means we're catching things earlier, flagging things, and making it more consistent than we ever could when it was a manual. So we've only just started rolling this out, but the early signs are there. It's what we're hoping for. And the big shift is moving terminology detection upstream, basically, all the way to the authoring tools where the content writers are. And that's what we'll be working on next, or starting to work on now. But if you imagine, for example, a doc writer at Adobe is writing creative documentation on a new product feature, TermScout, I'm hoping if we link in with the authoring tools, will detect a new product name or a feature term as they write it, surface it in the authoring tool with a suggested definition. The writer can propose it for the term base right there and then before it ever reaches a translator. And then from there, it'll go into our taxonomy and ontology pipeline, where taxonomists can validate it, connect it to broader content taxonomy. And then once it's validated, it should land in the term base to become translated, to get translated and gather relevant translations from our linguists. So the full flow becomes author writes, TermScout detects, taxonomy validates, term base gathers translation and pushes back into the taxonomy, and then localization is done. So one connected pipeline from the first word to translation. So for anyone in the room with knowledge graphs or untold terminology, TermScout doesn't do that today. But like I say, it's not what it's designed for. But what it does identify is extract term candidates at scale and for the ontology pipeline. So you can't build a knowledge graph without first knowing what your terms are. And so TermScout, I see it as the identifier, sort of the front door, if you will. So yeah, this is where terminology, like I say here, terminology stops becoming a localization problem and becomes a content strategy asset. Okay, and that's Timescout. So from a problem that the industry, I guess, told me couldn't really be solved, to a tool that's up and running in our production today, to a service that's already on, and hopefully one day terminology baked into the content supply chain from the very first word. So I got to say, I don't think I've like reinvented the wheel here. I just looked at the data, what we already had, and asked a slightly different question about what to do with it. So if anything I have shown today is useful to you, brilliant. Come find me afterwards. I'm very happy to talk about any of it.
Very
Thank you,
nice
Amy.
job, Amy. Go ahead, Maria. Sorry.
Thank you, Amy. I'm so glad that you mentioned that our roles are actually evolving, because to me, it's always shocking a little bit when I go to different events and people in our industry are panicking or have been panicking, especially since ChatGPT, thinking that maybe we're going to lose our jobs soon. But it was very important that you mentioned that our roles are evolving, and that's why I think we need to continue learning and joining these types of events. And I think now we can go to questions from the audience. We have Jan from the live stream and Stefan from the Zoom. Who would like to start?
Jan, what do you think? You're on mute again, buddy.
So here we go. I'm muted. So there are two questions from YouTube. First is from Eve Keep Galeen. How does this compare to Sketch Engine? Amy, do you know Sketch Engine?
I do, yeah. I actually tested it. Sketch Engine, I'll give it credit. It's fantastic at identifying the terms, but that's not what we need. Well, we didn't only need that. What we needed was multilingual support. I don't quote me, but I don't, at the time when we built this, that Sketch Engine didn't support extracting more languages other than just bilingual. So I know it also, I think Sketch Engine also pulls out like variant forms as well very well, which we were able, thankfully, to replicate. But at the time, I know others didn't do as well as that. So it's fantastic, especially if you're starting at the source, if you can get that early enough, something like Sketch Engine in the door. But like I say, we wanted it to pull out existing translations, and so that was where it didn't do it at the time. Maybe it does today, but at the time it didn't.
Excellent. And the second one is from Matteo, and he asks, how long did it take you to build this? And if you already have reached break even with deployment.
How long did it take to build it? Well, for the current version, I would say like the initial version we were able to roll out, I think in around like 3 months, 3 or 4 months, not even maybe. But that was the offline version. But then we built the UI and refined it and everything. And overall, from start to finish to where like the V3, I think it took probably 9 months to a year to get the version that I was happy with. And then what was the second question? Sorry.
The second question was if you have already reached return on invest.
Oh,
break even.
I would say so. I say by now, yeah. If not, then I think we will be very soon, because what happened is we built it, we tested it, and then now we had an issue where our TMs were not quite ready. We were, I'll not bore you, but we were onboarding onto a new system where it meant that we could no longer access the TMs in the way we needed. And so we had to put a bit of a pause on extracting fully from the TMs at the time. But now we're going through them one by one and we're automating it. And so I think, yeah, I think we're probably already at that point of breaking even, for sure.
Amy, it's great to see you again. Great presentation, inspiring, just like it was in my conversation with you last week.
Oh, thanks.
I have a question from the audience in the chat here. What LLM tool did did you use to build the term instructor, and how does the LLM know what qualifies for a glossary term to perform the extraction? For example, if I only want feature names added, not dictionary words, even if they are frequent. It's a very specific question.
So the LLM, so I mean NBA and all that, I can't tell you, but it's one that's very accessible to everybody. It wasn't it wasn't anything super complex. And to be honest, given that it's now been over a year, I think the models are actually advanced quite a bit. And one of my next tasks is to actually refresh or retest whether other models are better now. But it's a super common model that's out there, or LLM that's out there today, that most people can get a hands on. And then for how does the LLM know what qualifies as a glossary term? So it's AI essentially using sort of stemming and AI fanciness. I don't know how to express it here, but other than it detects, if you can, we give it a prompt, we are able to give that domain where you say to it, hey, focus on product names, focus on things like that. So it can infer that in, the way the text is talking about a particular term. So for example, introducing XYZ, then it's likely, or if it's preceded by Adobe, or it's the context around it helps massively in that.
Yeah. Is there any plans, Mihai wants to know, what is any plans, Amy, for you to commercialize this solution and make it available to the larger market?
Not right now. I mean, if there's interest, let me know. But for now, Adobe is.
This might be your exit strategy, Amy, if you play your cards right.
I mean, I certainly wanted it. If it was on the market, a couple of years ago, I would have been knocking at my director's door to buy it. So, sure, you can understand.
Yeah. And then I have one more question from Yevgenia. She concurs that it's impressive and thanks you for the presentation. How does it behave with the terminology with more than one word, or asymmetric terms? One word in the source, many words in the target.
So first part, how does it behave with terminology with more than one word? It does. We did it hit a few bumps in the road there where, for example, it was detecting the end part of making a new variant. Let's say Adobe campaign assets, or it was it was hallucinating a little bit, making new terms when actually there were two different things. It does handle, I think I added attribution model, right? That's two words. It did detect them together, and it did detect that, that is something that appears on its own. Like I say, it took a lot of refining the prompt to do that, but in the end, it did work out. It was more plurals that caused an issue. And then, was there a second question there? Oh, asymmetric terms, one word in source, many words in target. Well, that's exactly what I wanted to detect, right? Where if there were variants, we came up with this exactly for that reason. So where there's variation, I don't systematically just say, oh, that's inconsistent, and so it must be wrong. We hand it off to the linguists, and that's where I pull in their expertise to say, hey, is there a reason why we have multiple variants in X target, right? And they can then come back to us and say, yes, in this context, it needs to have this translation. In another context, it's another translation. Or when you're formal, addressing somebody formally, it needs to be one way versus the other. And so we can account for that in our term base. We have usage notes and usage context and things like that we account for, and then that can then be taken into account when we have the transcreation or the LLM based workflows. They can factor in the usage count and the context, and we add different context sentences. We found that context sentences work the best there. If you give it different contexts and explain it, the AI work or the LLM figures it out a lot quicker.
I have a bunch more questions now. People are really starting to get the hang of it. I know Jan has another one from YouTube. I'm going to give that to you in a second, Jan. I'm squeezing in one more here, and then we'll come to you.
Perfect.
And then maybe if there's more questions left, Management is going to let us know how close we're running up against time and whether we can, how many more we can squeeze in. But maybe Amy will be kind enough to stick around a little bit even after a presentation, answer a couple in the chat as well if we run out of time to handle them publicly here. Ling Liu is asking, I'm not sure if I missed it, she says, but it looks like Term Scout can extract a term from the TMX files. So does this mean the term extraction happens after the translation is done?
Yeah, so that's what we I mean, we unfortunately we have at Adobe we localize fast, and it's very, the content turnover is extremely fast, and so we can't always, we have a bajillion PMs, right, and program managers, so we can't always, I'm doing my absolute best to push up, you know, the moving of product, you know, product feature names, things like that, as much as possible being submitted to the term base before it's even gone to localization. And that I am in contact with the branding team and things like that, so I can get that earlier. But when it comes to more like non-product feature names and things like that, things that maybe just, you know, industry terms that we want to make sure we get right or get consistent, UI parts, right, you know, parts of the UI that may not necessarily features, but could be confusing if they're inconsistent. Those, yeah, sometimes they're already gone to translation because the documentation writer or the UI, the developer may not know, hey, we should add this to the term base, because they may not know that we see there's 3 different ways to say this in Japanese, right? They have no idea. So yeah, so we're detecting them after this is specifically what this tool does, is detect them after translation.
All right, we have time for one more, Jan. Is your microphone working? And then we'll switch to Lauren afterwards. Go ahead.
I hope so. Thanks a lot. Yeah, last question from Odette from YouTube. For the inconsistent translations, do you always have a human reviewer for those, or does AI sometimes evaluate the best translation variant, or do you go with the highest frequency?
No, if it's a concept that I think is valuable and I know should be in the term base and is inconsistent, then yeah, we get a human to look at that for us. AI evaluating that is definitely a possibility, or could at least maybe suggest, but I think I would like a human to validate that, a linguist to provide. Like I said, we found a lot of value in that. I gave an example when I was talking to Stefan, right? We discovered that the wrong translation in Chinese for proof was being used. It sounded like something out of a Sherlock Holmes novel instead of something in digital marketing. So yeah, so we get value from that. Right now we're using the linguists, and I'm happy to continue doing so. But we've still significantly dropped the need to bring them in, because we're removing all the noise that was just basically data trolling from that. But I'd rather bring them in for the inconsistency, to give that valuable input, versus having them waste their time confirming and finding things that are already consistent.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Maria, we have Lauren Barker from GitLab on tap. Amy, thank you so very much. Stick around for a minute and maybe answer a couple of questions in the chat, if you would be so kind. And Maria, take it away, introducing Lauren.
Thank you. Yes, I see that Lauren is ready. Us ladies are always ready. She is an engineer from GitLab, a localization engineer. And today she's going to teach us how GitLab has integrated localization directly into their engineering workflows. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Lauren Barker from GitLab. Lauren, go ahead.
All right. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you translations shipping the same way we ship code. No vendor portal, no separate tool. It's all inside GitLab. I'm not going to sell you any products. I built this with the help of the team. Big shout outs to Maria Jose, Olex, Daniel Sullivan, Spartan, Rassam. I could not have done this without them. And it's running on real docs right now and the marketing site. And we just landed the real automated translation MRs in production last week. All right. So here's the part everyone in this room has lived. English source changes. We're just going to wait a couple days. And the translated versions show up 5 days later. One, if you throw a little more money at it. In that meantime, your source is changing, right? It goes out to the TMS, the vendor portal, you're exporting, you submit, you wait, and then you get it back. And at that point, it's still just a change request. In our case, it's just a merge request. It still needs to be reviewed by our team and deployed. That's 5 days. And that every step of that is happening outside of the tool where your content is actually living. It's done 2 ways. Vendor cycle, export, wait, get an MR back, open it, review it. It's just a proposed change. Think tracked changes that someone's approving before it lands. Days. Or you can do it manually, translate it in-house. We have tools where we can do it, but that still takes some hours, right? Either way, what's getting me is that translations aren't being tracked the same way English. English, we can track down to the word, why you've changed and what feature shipped with that change, down to the conversation that happened with that change. Why can't we do that with translations? Why can't we track the translated version to the English version and why it's changed? That's what this whole gap is about. So what is it? It's a set of reusable CI components. And a CI component is just a block that you can dump into any CI and reuse it. So we have this running across 7 projects right now. And instead of crafting one component that detects changes and dropping it in 7 times, I just build it once and pull it in. And there's many components, and we can build as many CI components as we want. On every...
Lauren, 1 second. Can you remove, please, your... No, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Cool.
Nobody heard me.
All right. So every source change happens and it's triggering a pipeline instantly. You don't have to wait for a translation request. It just already knows. Prepares them, and then it sends it out to the LLM, and then the LLM does the translating. It comes back, delivers it, post-processes it. So you can run good old classic CI/CD to do linting, markdown lint. We have veil rules, whatever you need. That's not AI. Nothing's leaving GitLab except for the point of sending the content out to the LLM of your choice. So let's walk the arrows. We got a source change in the English docs. Triggers the pipeline immediately, detects the changes, package those up, the whole files, and we send them out to the LLM. They come back, they get committed to your branch in GitLab. MR is opened, you can see all the changes. You can post edit if you need to. This is the big part. Human review is adjacent, not blocking, so that your target changes are running at the same speed as source changes. Step and lock. You have a source change, 1 sentence to 1 file, that target change is happening right away. So here's the whole idea. Pipeline. The pipeline that already ships your code can ship your translations. Your content's already living as code. It's marked down in a repository. It's YAML or JSON. It's just code. And you can run a pipeline on it and treat it the same way that you do code. So the translating itself is done by an LLM. And for us, we're using Claude Sonnet 4.6 right now. You can configure it to use whatever model you want. And it's not translating from a blank slate. There is a knowledge base managed by your team, your linguists, that contains all the information of how your organization translates. Style guides, term-based, translation examples. You could plug that into external tools if you want. It's up to you how you want to build that out. But it's the knowledge base for your LLM to guide it during the translation. It's the only AI part of this step is just sending this out. Everything else is just CI/CD. Okay, here's the scary part. We're going to do it real and live on screen, which is what you're not supposed to do in live demos, but I'm just going to try. All right. So I've got a fork of GitLab, and we can detect changes if we want to. But instead, let's say I want to translate all of our 17.0 release files. I have a scheduled pipeline here that I haven't triggered yet, and it'll grab all of the content and translate it. I'm going to press the button. We should be able to come back here and see all of these files translated by the time I finish up this presentation. And if we click in here, we can see the pipeline is running. Okay. So we just kicked off the translations. Now let's go look at some Orbit translations. These ones are live and have already hit production. Here's the automated translation MR. You can configure whatever you want in this. In the translation MR, you can configure the labels. Here I've pinned it to exactly the commit that triggered the changes, the job that did the translation, the full pipeline, the languages, what mode, what model. Here's the spec repo we're using, source, target files, what we've done. Let's go look at the changes tab. This is pretty cool. We see this MCP doc changed, Orbit local to Claude Code, Codex, Open Code. And I want to go see, okay, what's the source change related to that? I can click right here. It takes me to the source change. And let's look at the MR. This was a feature that we deployed for Orbit, for GitLab. And since we shipped docs as code, this is the actual code that shipped the feature, but it also included some docs changes, right? And so we go down to MCP. Look, we can see the description changed. And we can see this warning got deleted. Come over here. Bam, it's right there. That is pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. And we can come and track down into the pipeline. Here's the detect translation step. This is also pretty cool. Here's the diff range to track what's changed in between. Here's the docs that have changed. It's preparing them, and it sends it a list of files. This one's the meat. This is the component that's doing the translating. Here's our spec repo, path mapping. So here's where we're grabbing the content. Here's where we send it out to. We're pulling in all of our specifications. We have some that are just for how do we need to format this data. We pull in, here's the translation, the language specifications, and then you run through and translate each file, and you get the MR delivered in the pipeline. And that's pretty wild. The repository is here for CI translation components. It's open source. I'll drop links in the chat. We have a couple of components right now: detect, prepare, trigger, execute, post-process. I think this is the part this group's really going to get excited about. Think about all the validation components you can do inside your CID once you get these translations back. Matching terms, you can pull in a separate LLM to judge quality, and you can configure that to however you want. Like the build out is endless here, and that's the really exciting part for me. And then how do you see it run? We're running all of our CI in one project so we can manage all of it. But let's go over to the GitLab project. I just pull in this component. I don't have to pull in all the code, just the component, and I configure it. Here, let's just watch that directory. Preparing it. Here's the file list we're going to send to the LLM. Here's the source path. Here's the target path. Execute. I want to, target language is English. If I wanted to add more languages, I just add them here. Here we specify what AI model we want to use. You can configure it to your own AI model, and then labels, whatever you want. It's completely configurable. And let's go see this original one here this is the scary part. All right, it's running. Let's see translation happening real time. This is wild. It's still creating the repository. Dang. Well, this is the one that's going to go and do the translation. I can open an MR that I did earlier, and we can go see. This one was the 18 dot release. Lots of files. Here's that execute translation job that did it. Here's all of those files getting translated. And then they got delivered back to the MR, which is right here. And these are all in Japanese, which is a lot of content. Okay, live demo. I will share those links in the Zoom chat. All right, so what's changed here? What are the results? What used to take 5 days is now taking an hour or less end to end. I want to be precise about that because someone's going to ask about the orchestration, detect, deliver, open, all of it. The triggering of the translation is instant. It's the minute source change happens. The wall clock time is the LLM doing the translation. We just saw for that 17.0 release, it's taking some time for the pipeline to run. The first automated MRs were merged upstream this week for Orbit, Operator, and we're doing full continuous translation of our documentation in those projects. And we also are running solution pages for the marketing site in Spanish, and that's part of this rollout trial. So what changes? 3 things. Translation lives where your content lives. You get full Git history, an audit trail on every translation for free. It's just Git. And you can go down Git blame to the line and track back to why it's changed. It's not by wiring up integrations. The bigger point is that localization stops becoming an external dependency that you're coordinating with, and it's infrastructure that you own, and it sits right inside your code. So here's what you can steal. Our projects are open source. I'll drop links. You can use those. You can fork them and build off your own. The 3 things you need to build this out yourself: content is code, Markdown, YAML, JSON, like your content is living somewhere in a repository. A pipeline runner, something to run the CI. There's options. I love GitLab. And an LLM gateway. And that can be Anthropic, it can be OpenAPI. OpenAI can be your own LLM. It's up to you. And that's where I start for questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was like a class. That's why I always think that more people should join. People should actually the endless possibilities that we have in our industry. So thank you very much, Lauren. Now we're going back to Stefan with questions from our Zoom, and then Jan with questions from our live stream. Maybe Stefan can start this time.
I'm not sure that I have a lot of questions at the ready here. Jan, do you have anything in the in the live stream?
You're mute.
John's microphone. In the meantime, Lauren, one of the things that came to mind, right? I mean, the speed is impressive, and I'm sure it's rocking your world. Slowing or speeding it up from 5 days to 1 hour. Is there ever anything that goes wrong? And it seems like the kind of super automation that's both super exciting and terrifying at the same time. So if something goes off the rails, how do you find out? And is there any human intervention along the way? Because all the language that you're talking about is code. So that sounds scary from a regulatory point of view, so to speak, but you tell me.
Yeah. So with code, we can have all kinds of testing in place before it ever reaches production. And that's what we do with code. Every little change that we push to production with code is tested to the sky. We can do that same testing with translations in a pipeline. Down, like the sky's the limit there. What's going wrong right now is the LLM is changing more than it needs to. We'll be completely transparent about that. We need to trim it down so that we're only sending it the diff of like, hey, only translate this string that's changed. But as we saw in some of those docs as code changes, the changes are substantial. They change throughout the whole document. We want to ship those translated features at the same pace that we do for English source. Why do our Japanese users not have the updated documentation for, a couple weeks? Why can't we do it at the same speed? And if it's translated correctly, passes like initial quality gates, let's say you can check that it has the same number of headings, the same list elements, the same number of links, that it's translated, makes the same meaning as it does in the source. All right, it's good. We can ship it. We can do the human review and the polish adjacent.
Lots of talk these last couple of months about token usage. Georg certainly alluded to it in his keynote as well this morning. Is there any consideration at your company with token usage and things maybe not being fully controllable as far as cost is concerned?
Yeah.
Any concerns?
There haven't been any concerns yet. We ran for the demo. I translated the entire marketing site into 2 languages, and it was $20. The cost was just nominal. Last year, using a different model and a different process, we translated 3,000 documents using AI, and it was less than $200. Like the cost is just so little that we haven't hit that yet.
Yeah, why do we hear that the token cost is so astronomical? Is the coding that much more expensive than the translating?
Agents.
Yeah, the agents are racking it up.
Yeah.
But there's some agentic features here too. I assume that you're not sitting at the helm clicking buttons all day to make this go. This is agentic as well, right, Lauren?
Most of it isn't. Most of it's just CI/CD. It's just
okay.
What we've been doing with code for a very long time. The only AI part is actually sending the content to an LLM and having it do the translation. And that part isn't expensive. I think we come back and we add a second step to bring in a second LLM to do the judgment call. Hey, tell me how good these translations are. That's gonna, double the cost, right? But we're still at a nominal element there. Whereas agents are continually running.
How is it? The speed is one thing, but how is it really impacted your process as such? How is the world different now from, beyond just the turnaround time?
The world is different in that we're bringing all of our team and our entire team into helping build the specifications that run the LLM. So it's like, yes, we human review the translations that we get from an LLM as we're booting up. Let's say we have 10, and we review those in detail, and we take our learnings and apply them directly to the specification repo as a set of rules. So all of our learnings from those 10 reviews then get applied to the next 100 that are getting generated. So instead of battling the LLM like line for line head on, we do that to learn, but then we can step away after. It's overwhelming. I'm going to be, it is overwhelming at first and hard. Yeah.
Very interesting. Jan, is there anything in on YouTube that you can log Lauren's way?
Yes. Now the people are warming up. Lauren, you triggered some discussion. So let me start with one I had in my mind as well. This comes from user Danas Vaga. How do you evaluate quality, and how do you make changes if needed? I think this is a very good one.
Yeah. So right now we're doing the quality check by human. Our team is looking at every single one of these that are coming through. Our linguists. Our linguists have enjoyed not having to go back into the TMS. Before they're having to make an edit in GitLab, the target update has to get made back in the TMS. It was double the work. Now they can just do that edit in GitLab. We can use Duo to say, hey, retain all of our linguist updates when you go and apply this next change. I did that with our 19.0 release. And while it's not catching everything, it's doing a decent job. Decent enough job to keep working at it.
I have a question from Yevgenia here, who's saying, do I understand it correctly that you don't use any CMS where you would see the content without code context? If so, how do you ensure the quality of the source text that is ready for localization? And also, how do you prevent, for example, the problems connected to different placements of placeholders depending on the target language?
Yeah,
we're getting in the weeds now, Lauren. So these are very, very detailed questions.
Yeah. So our content, it's in Markdown document, can be very structured. You can use whatever UI tool you want to use to edit Markdown. In GitLab, we have you can edit the document right there. And if it doesn't, like if it's formatted wrong, the pipeline straight fails. Like it won't build. So that's an automatic block. If your stuff isn't formatted to the right structure, you can't even deploy it. So the source has to be correct before we even translate it. And that same check is in the pipeline when it comes back translated. So if there's extra indentations, there's a wrong quote, if the string isn't escaped, pipeline fails, you're blocked. So it's some safeguards there. For the marketing site, we're using YAML because it's a Nuxt site, and it's a little more complex. You have to pull in different components, and that's how we make it big and beautiful, but it's still very structured in the YAML, saying, here's the title screen, here's the subtitle, here's the body content, here's the href and the link. We have a CMS on top of that called Decap, which is just a UI that allows you to edit the YAML in here's your input fields. And that allows our people that don't want to edit the YAML directly, they can use Decap also. So there's two paths for people to edit the YAML.
I know Jan has several more questions. I want to squeeze in one more, and then I'm handing it back over to Jan. Get ready, Jan. Lauren, do you have any legal disclaimers, Natalia wants to know, to the content that is translated with LLMs, or how do you handle it, that it's fully automated? Does it have any legal ramifications?
For our P1 content, we're going to get human eyes on it. For example, pricing page. The unfortunate part is we've had wrong translations shipped to the pricing page using the vendor system also. So that there are ramifications in every process we've seen. Yeah.
Jan?
Yeah. Okay.
We have one more question, Jan, sorry.
One single more. Okay.
Yes, from the Q&A. From Ariana Farah, she says, when applying the changes and creating the merge report, and you mentioned using an LLM to judge quality, does the pipeline only look at the changes or take into account larger context? If the former, do you inject the necessary information from elsewhere, terminology, gender of subject, or whether they is singular, plural, in a sentence, for example, or rely on post-editing? If the latter, do you limit token use when you have multiple small consecutive changes in long text so it doesn't balloon?
So yeah, lots there. So with every change, we're sending our entire specs right now. We only send the terminology that's actually getting used in the source to the target. So that helps reduce token usage. There's more opportunity to improve that. When we send the content to the LLM, we're saying, hey, this has changed. Look at the diff, and it can detect what lines have changed. Along with it, we're sending the full document also, so that the LLM has the full context of the page when it's going to update those strings.
Got you. Shall I? Maria, thank you. So,
yes,
okay, so I got from, let's start with Heid Kilchi. So he was asking, or she was asking, so translation memory is used only as a reference material in this process, not as traditional match that TMS cut tools does. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no TMS. There's no
TMS. Yeah. So in other words, translation memories will not be updated with new translations in the process. Is that correct?
Yeah. To me, the TMS is the content itself living in the repository. We have Git. Git has the history of every change that's been made to that translated content. Mm-hmm. And now with this process, we can track it down to the source change as well.
Excellent. And Adam from Lingoport asked, what is the mechanism for human review corrections to get back into the repo? I think you already answered that.
Yeah.
One, saying that they are working directly in GitHub.
Yeah, directly in the code. So in that MR, if you spot something, you can fix it. Or let's say you found it's gone off the rails a little bit, open Duo and say, hey, go find all examples where it said X instead of Y, and it'll go through all of your content, open an MR with all of those fixes. The scale at which it can move is so fast.
God, yeah. There's one more question I see from Maria. From Michal. No, sorry. This is the next one. Sorry. So this is for now everything from our side here from YouTube. So very excited. Very good.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. That was very interesting. And we have spent much of our time today talking about building AI-powered solutions. But the next obvious question is, how do we evaluate those systems? Our next speaker, Michal Junchik, from Allegro's localization and data team, is here to share their eight-step framework for evaluating AI agentic systems and measuring, of course, performance. Michal, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Maria. And let me share the slides.
Yes, please.
All right. So, good afternoon. My name is Michal Junchik, and together with the team, we are representing Allegro. Today, we are going to talk about AI evaluation. Lately, you might have noticed increased interest in AI evaluation or evals across different roles. The reason is that AI systems are unpredictable by nature, and this means traditional software and product testing methods are no longer enough. But we are here to bring you some good news. The localization industry has been doing work directly relevant to AI evaluation for many years. Basically, language teams are the experts at measuring quality in specific business contexts. And in this presentation, I will show you why language teams hold the key to trust in agentic AI. And in our workshop, right after, we will build a baseline AI evaluation system together. So let's get started. First, some quick context. Allegro is the largest native e-commerce marketplace in Central and Eastern Europe. We come from Poland, and we currently serve over 20 million active buyers across 4 major markets. In 2023, we launched the Allegro marketplace in Czech Republic. Then we expanded to Slovakia and Hungary a year later. Each new market was launched faster and more effective than the last. And as you know, every new country has its own language nuances and cultural expectations. Therefore, our goal is to make the shopping experience feel local to every Allegro customer. At Allegro, we divide our AI strategy into 2 streams, external and internal AI solutions. In the external AI, we use conversational agents to reshape how shoppers buy and partners run their operations. We also use AI to scale and optimize our ads and marketing. In the internal AI stream, we accelerate our product development. Thanks to new tools, we now ship software ideas in weeks instead of months. Secondly, we also improve operations and internal processes. And last but not least, we give every employee a personal AI tool. This helps everyone work smarter and faster. So let's now just quickly focus on our recent innovations in external AI stream. This year, we have released 2 in-house built AI assistants. These solutions are already making life of our shoppers and partners much easier. And specifically, AI assistant for shoppers let our users search like they're talking to a real person. For example, our AI can answer questions about products and remember the conversation context. The AI assistant for selling partners act as a 24/7 support, helping to navigate across documentation and sales center tools, as well as manage daily operations. It is worth to mention that we have nearly 100 AI projects running today. And of course, this growing adoption and scale lead us to the big question, how do we actually measure if our AI systems are actually good? So this is where our team steps in. We are the Data Annotation and Quality Assurance Services team, or DAQAS in short. Our main mission is to scale trust in our AI across all languages. To achieve this mission, we combine scalable evaluations and expert standards. Basically, we own the quality standards and the QA tools, but we also act as a bridge. Our function is to connect internal teams with their specific needs and expertise with the industry-leading tools and vendors to achieve proper scale and efficiency. At all stages, we act as an independent quality gate and trusted advisor for multiple teams at Allegro. In the simple terms, you can also think of our team as Allegro's AI kitchen. So we select and prepare the raw ingredients, human-created high-quality datasets, and we also test and tweak the recipes, LLM prompts, or shared language resources. And last but not least, we enforce one golden rule: human in a loop. Simply speaking, it means only human can taste a dish and say, yes, it's ready to be served to our precious customers. But as AI gets more advanced, quality verification gets harder. And I'm here to explain why. But before that, let's start from the foundations. What is an eval? So think of an eval as a test to see if your AI can do a specific job. You need 4 things to build one. First, a set of test questions. This is your test data set. Second, you need to define the task for the AI to perform. Third, you need to grade the AI's answers against the expectations defined in your dataset. And for this, you need to have an evaluator to produce a score. And fourth, you need a way to interpret the evaluation results. In other words, you need to check whether the score is good enough to pass the test. It sounds simple, but doing this well in practice is not easy. And the reason is, there are 2 major reasons. First, if your test questions are unrealistic, the test is not helpful, as it does not cover what actually matters. Second issue is where judge or quality criteria are too easy to pass. Then the test is misleading, giving a team a false sense of safety. Now, let's zoom out and realize that in reality, when we build an evaluation system, we have a whole menu to choose from. So let's imagine we want to assess the quality of the machine translation system. So first, we need to choose our test data set. Let's look at the left-hand side on the blue section. So we have first option, very obvious. We will just prepare the sentences and translate them by ourselves, by developers. This is, of course, slow and prone to bias. Therefore, the gold standard is examples from users. It's taking examples from users. Those examples may contain typos or peculiar syntax, but they are representative of how people actually use our system. And to have the ground truth for evaluation, we also need to manually translate and annotate those user examples. For example, mark specific samples as difficult or out of domain. But it may happen we don't have real data from users yet, so then we can use synthetic data. It's a fast and cheap method, but similarly to developer-created examples, it can be too clean and therefore unrealistic. Okay, so right now our data set is ready. Let's examine the task. So let's focus on the bottom part in red. The first question is, are we testing a simple MTE system or multi-step localization agent which uses external knowledge bases? It is very important to know because what works well for translation or simple LLM engine may not be optimal for testing other things. So, of course, for example, translation evaluators won't help us with chatbots, and they are also not very useful for evaluating image or code generation agent. So the bottom line is that we must always be aware of the proper evaluation method for specific target task. Okay, so now we need to decide on the evaluator. So let's focus on the top part in green. We have 3 main choices. First, humans. This method is highly accurate, but as we also know, slow and expensive to scale. Second option, simple automated rules and code. For example, spell checkers, regex, etc. Such heuristics can instantly detect typos or broken formatting, but those are completely blind to actual meaning. So the third option is to use LM as a judge adjusted to our quality criteria. It works well at scale, but we need to remember this method still needs human experts to verify the judgment of AI. And of course, we can combine multiple methods to have the best from all of the worlds. Now, knowing our task, feasible methods, and budgets, we must choose between comparing AI output against human ground truth or so-called referenceless methods, which analyze only AI outputs. And the last decision when designing evaluation pipeline, we need to decide whether we want to assess the AI system output or compare 2 outputs to find the better performing variant. So we have evaluators set. The last step, we need to apply them. So let's focus on the right-hand side in yellow. First, we can use unit testing for checking basic functions. For example, we can instantly verify that our translation system does not open broken HTML tags or corrupt our web layouts, as we see from the discussion in the last session. Second, we can run eval experiments during development to prove that our newly updated model or prompt is actually better. Third option, we can use comparative testing. For example, we run tests on a fixed data set to compare performance over time, or we are just making sure we don't make quality worse. And this can be done. This can be run automatically in so-called offline testing mode, but we can also run evaluation online to monitor quality in production and prove our sponsors that we are capturing the errors and we are meeting strict quality targets. So there are many options in this menu. And why do we need so many of them? Because agentic AI systems pose specific challenges. So right now, let's focus on them. On the left-hand side, you see traditional machine translation system or standard LLM. What's important? It is just a linear path. You give it an input, the model processes it, and outputs a result. The processing is done once. Now, let's look at the orange box on the right. This is our localization agent running a so-called goal-driven loop. So instead of a single step, it continuously iterates. It moves through thoughts, actions, and observations before outputting the final result. And this agentic behavior is incredibly useful, but it introduces the 5 major challenges I will explain in a second. So first one is what good means is very context specific. We know from translations very well that what works for marketing copy doesn't work for legal domain. We also know that the level of details, tone, and format is highly dependent on the application and user. Therefore, if you want to evaluate agents effectively, we need to be able to track and recreate the exact context the agent operated within. Second, there are many correct processing paths, or the thinking paths of the agents. And 2 agents can take completely different routes and both produce the same good quality output. So then the question of which is better boils down to which was faster and cheaper. Third, for all the bad outputs, knowing the processing path is critical. Why? Because we need to be able to replicate all agent steps to identify at what stage it failed and why. For example, was it a reasoning error that caused the agent to choose the wrong glossary, or was the bad output caused by the wrong data in the correctly selected glossary? They can manifest the same, but have completely different root causes. And because those errors in agentic systems propagate silently, logging and analyzing the whole process is very important. We also call it AI tracing. And we all know that an obsolete style guide or glossary can produce thousands of poor quality translations before it's detected. So the same applies to agents. The solutions to those problems is online quality monitoring using automated AI judges, but they also need constant calibration and clear ownership to be trusted, which is the 5th major challenge with agentic AI evals. Okay, so now we understand the challenges. It's time to share the good news. The people who can solve those challenges are in this room. Let me explain why. I think dealing with agentic AI quality is actually quite similar to managing human translation processes. It's all about guiding, reviewing, and calibrating a complex and subjective workflow. When engineers building AI agents worry that good is so hard to capture, so context specific, we as language experts can remain calm because we already know very well that localization is all about context. When engineers worry that there is no critical correct path, for you, it might look very familiar because you know there is no single proper translation method, and the choice depends on the content type, budget, timeline, etc. Third, when engineers realize a good final output can hide agentic process failures, you know, maybe even too well, that a beautiful copy often hides broken translation workflow. You also know how to troubleshoot it. So there should be no surprise with how agents are troubleshooted. Finally, when engineers, the fourth parallel is when engineers fear silent cascading errors, you can relate because you know what happens when a glossary error runs through the whole project and how hard it is to detect it and fix it. Finally, when engineers struggle to keep AI just consistent, you already know how to do calibration because you've done it with the unpredictable humans for years, and you can also do it for similarly unpredictable AI systems. So my point is that language experts don't need to reinvent themselves so much. They just need to adopt some new tools and strengthen their engineering mindset. And they simply need to manage their guides, glossary, and unique expertise in a more structured, scalable way. So simply speaking, localization experts are not behind this AI wave, they are ahead. And I know what you might be thinking. Okay, we have these transferable skills, but where should we actually start with this agentic evals thing? So let me show you. Let's look at this 5-stage evaluation lifecycle. Stage 1 is LMS as a judge. This means using a general AI model like Gemini to grade another AI model's output. It is super fast to set up, but it only gets you to about 70% accuracy. To make it safe for business, we must enter stage 2, expert refinement. This is where your unique domain expertise comes to play. You find the edge cases in user logs, build gold standards, and refine the rules. This improves judge accuracy from 70% up to 95%. And it's important that quality jump is driven by the human expert, not better, more expensive AI model. Once we have an AI judge we can trust, we unlocked stage 3, evals-driven development. Engineers can now use our AI judges as a compass to build twice as fast. They can run experiments, edit prompts, and instantly see if they made quality better or worse. And then comes stage 4, cost optimization. Running a general purpose AI engines like Gemini, OpenAI GPT, or Claude is very expensive. But once we define our exact quality criteria, we can use smaller, specialized models. Because they do just a single job, they can do evals as good as big models, but 10 times cheaper. And the final stage, E2E guardrails. E2E, of course, stands for end-to-end, and means we evaluate the entire user journey and all AI systems components in real time. So think of guardrails as a safety nets on highway. They are those fast automated checks running on live traffic. If an agent makes a mistake, the guardrail instantly catches it and blocks it before even a user sees it. So now, as the owners of those evals, as language experts, you can move from quality checking to enabling strategic decisions. Let me show you 2 examples of agentic AI product trade-off. First, development phase. The goal is to balance quality versus cost. The sponsor asks, can we switch to a cheaper model? And expert brings the data showing that for cheaper model, quality drops from 92 to 87%. Then the product team can assess the decision to reduce the cost given the impact on the system performance and user experience. Second scenario is production monitoring. Here, the business might want to trade coverage for certainty. So imagine a scenario in which after growing number of incidents reported by users, a sponsor asks, can we improve the coverage of guardrails? But let's keep the budget fixed. So experts can show that cheaper model allows us to monitor 5 times larger traffic, but with greater risk of false alarms. And then the sponsor can make informed decision to increase the coverage at the cost of false alarms and not so precise evaluation scores. So the bottom line is engineers can calculate costs and latencies, but not quality. Only experts skilled in evaluation can put a number on what at stakes for our key stakeholders. And on the last slide, I showed you how evals give experts an opportunity to increase their impact. And this slide shows the progression. So it starts from step 1, curator. Here you turn your daily QA reviews into structured data assets. These become companies' gold standards. Then you step up to become a builder. Here you run evaluation experiments and design scalable AI judges. Your work as evals owner becomes critical intellectual property of the company. Finally, you reach the step 3, leader. This is where you partner with engineers and business leaders to adopt the best practices for evals across all AI products. And important, as an expert, you don't have to walk this entire staircase to add very huge value. Step 1 is much closer than it looks, and it has the largest return investment. And of course, the development of AI systems actually never ends. We prepare data, we test it, deploy it, find the gaps in production. Then every gap becomes a new training data and insights for the next cycle. And because language is alive, product requirements change, and models drift, this loop has no end. Therefore, the expertise is needed continuously. And this brings us to the last question: how to adopt and maintain evaluation at scale without hiring a massive team? So the common error is to think of evaluation as a temporary one-time project done just at the beginning. And some organizations try to either outsource everything or build it all internally. I think neither is good for the long-term maintenance. The solution I believe in is presented on the slide. So on the left, we have internal team, what's called the brain of the operation. This team decides what good means, owns the rubrics, and manages calibration. On the right-hand side, we have external partners, and they scale across languages, enables continuous operations, and catch all the internal team blind spots through independent validation. And this is the winning combination for building a permanent, highly efficient evaluation engine. So, to conclude, if you remember only one thing from this talk, let it be this: the more autonomous AI becomes, the more it needs people who define good. And your test data sets and rubrics are core intellectual property that enables governing AI systems at scale. But there is no AI magic, and we all know it. So those tools don't scale QA on their own. Skilled people do. So in our workshop in 15 minutes, together with Maria, Agata, Monica, and Jana, we will cover the essentials in 4 practical steps to get you started: ground truth annotations, experimenting with AI judges, baseline meta evaluation, and how to improve AI judge by adding domain expertise to the prompts. So thanks a lot for your attention, and hope to see you in a few minutes on the workshop.
Wow. Michael, that was excellent. Thanks a lot. Very interesting. I have 2 questions from YouTube, and it's very brief because then we have to head over to the workshop. So, what are the growing areas for multilingual evaluation right now? What do you see is like emerging areas for these kind of tests?
Multilingual specifically. So I think many companies as ours are focusing on their core markets, and they are building agents and the most important part is defining the specs, defining the test data sets, building all those evaluation systems we mentioned today. But then scaling these agents to the new markets requires actually repeating the process with the specific cultural context. So I think this is an emerging trend to combining this core product AI evals with multilingual localization of test data, adapting AI judges, maybe working with domain experts internally to help them improve the knowledge sources, which may contain some language market-specific rules. This is something I think emerging as a new role for LQA teams internally and with external partner support.
Okay, excellent. The second question here from YouTube, and that's it from us. Do you collect challenge data sets for repeated evaluations? Is there a sampling mechanism?
Challenge data sets. Yeah, we call them edge cases. We collect them for all products we are building. We also try to share them between projects, especially those concerning some core guardrails we would like to have implemented across all products which are customer facing. So yeah, we would love to also build data sets which are shared publicly as a kind of benchmarks for e-commerce for our languages, but that's on the roadmap, not yet in the production.
Excellent. That's it from me. Stefan, do you want to close?
I know that we're in a little bit of a time crunch, so I don't have anything further from the chat. Thank you, Mikhail, for a great presentation, and I think we're ready for the workshops. If I'm correct.
Wonderful. So then, just from my side, from YouTube, thank you everybody for joining. This conference is now moving over to the private section where the workshops happen. If you are still interested to join them, head over to the website. I drop it in the comments, and you can get your access to follow Mihail and the rest on the workshops. For the rest, see you tomorrow. Subscribe, press the notify button to stay tuned, and tomorrow we'll be back with day 2.
I hope everyone's had a fantastic conference and learned a lot. And I just want to thank you all for giving up your time to participate in this thought exchange. And I say thought exchange because the questions that I was asked during my session were phenomenally interesting. And I just think all of these interactions are a great opportunity for us to learn from each other. So please also take advantage. My email address, our company contact details are there. We want to hear from you and how you're driving forward the future of language, content, and localization in your company.
Hi, I'm Maria Dębska-Czerniawska from Data Annotation and QA Services team at Allegro. If you want to learn a practical way to make AI-assisted quality evaluation more reliable, join our workshop on Wednesday. You'll learn how expert reviews become gold data, how that data tests an LLM judge, and how using multiple metrics will help you verify if your AI output is trustworthy.
If you haven't yet registered for the workshops, there's still time to do so. Simply scan the QR code on the screen to secure your place. Your workshop pass gives you access to 3 practical hands-on sessions led by people who are actively building the future of localization. You'll leave with real-world insights, practical skills, and resource materials to help you apply these tools immediately in your own organization.
Join me tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. and we will speak about Kraken and how we built our AI localization ecosystem from scratch. So don't miss it out.
What I'll touch on is how we built our platform, our internal platform, we call it MAD Insight, to basically analyze feedback from users at scale in a way that we couldn't do before. Okay, I'm Priscilla Matola. I'm the Director of Language Quality at KnowBe4. We're a digital workforce security platform, and my team does all of the quality assurance testing for localized content into more than 35 languages. I think people should not miss my session because I will bring some insights into how to use GenAI in a different way, not just to translate, to execute translation, but to build a quality program that relies on user insights and to leverage GenAI in different ways, different perspectives that still bring a lot of value to the business.
Hi everybody, my name is Jurik Sisilski. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Elan Languages. If you are interested in finding out how people in our industry leverage innovation to solve long-standing complex problems, then the Innovation Challenge is for you.
Dave Ruan from Line People Global here. The Innovation Challenge, it's another innovation platform. You gotta be here, there's innovations on it. We're gonna see some good mix this time. So see you on either day. And I'd like to thank PO Editor for supporting this platform and look forward to seeing you.
Shout out to PO Editor for sponsoring this session. Without your support, this wouldn't be possible.